everyone. We're going to call this meeting to order. It is 4:04 p.m. Welcome to our third Personnel and Budget Committee meeting of the LA City Charter Reform Commission. We're going to start with roll call. Andrea Mack, chair of this committee, is present. Commissioner Field?
Present.
Commissioner Thomas is not here but on his way. Thank you. We have quorum. Just a reminder, this meeting is being broadcasted live, and for anyone who is joining us today, we do have Spanish translations and interpretation available in the back. I'm going to give a moment for our Spanish interpreter to say a few quick words.
Hola, buenas tardes. Si usted requiere interpretación en español, por favor, venga para acá para agarrar el dispositivo. Y si van a dar un comentario en público, por favor hagan pausa para que podamos interpretar sus palabras. Gracias.
All right, thank you. And I will now hand it over to staff to administer public comment.
Thank you, Madam. Ooh, there's a loud mic. Thank you, Madam Chair, and welcome everyone. I am going to start us off with in-person public comment. I am going to call 3 names at a time. We only have 3 names at the moment. So, Nick, I got you. As Nick walks in. Please come up. I'll ask, it is a 1-item agenda, so that's 1 minute for general public comment and 1 minute for the item for a total, optional total of 1 or 2 minutes. I'll ask you to come and speak and let me know how long you'll be speaking for, and then we'll set the timer, and hopefully the timer will work for us today. And then we'll go to virtual public comment, those on Zoom. James, Chad, Justy, and Nick. Those are our four people signed up. James first. James Moore. Any seat? Yeah, perfect.
Okay.
Grab a seat and grab a mic. 1 or 2 minutes.
2 minutes, please.
Okay, and go.
Hello, honored commissioners. Oh, is James Thomas not here?
He's on his way.
Okay, fantastic. Well, hello, honored commissioners. Thank you for your time. I also wanted to thank the staffers. I don't know who prepared the recommendations today in a single document, but that was like an incredible document, and I just want to say, really good work. Solid. I can't have been easy. I would like to speak on the issue of general liability, which is police reform, point number 8, and why I believe it to be essential to be enshrined in the charter. There were 3 objections that were noted in the report as potential issues. I can't speak on the first one on departmental policy. That seems like something that the city attorney would make a determination on. However, the second issue and the third issue seem particularly relevant to me. The second issue is that it would limit budget flexibility. That's a worthwhile issue to flag. My counterpoint to this would be we spent $100 million on police liability out of the general fund last year. That is definitionally restricting our budget flexibility. That restricts it the way concrete shoes limit our ability to swim. That's a crazy amount of money, and that needs to be allocated properly to the departmental budget and most likely to individual police officer insurance and liability. And then the third point that I think is also worth noting is that, yes, this could be theoretically passed through ordinance, through city council. However, every single city council member that I have spoken to and the city attorney has publicly said that this has to come through charter reform. Whether or not they're correct about that, I don't know. What I will say is that they are putting you could say that they're passing the buck. You could also say that they are empowering you to make this choice for all of us, as Angeli knows. Therefore, I would say that the responsibility is clearly yours to pass this. I hope you will take up this reform. I believe it to be one of the most impactful things we could do for this. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much. Next up is Chad. Chad, 1 or 2 minutes.
2 minutes, please. Good afternoon, Commissioners. I'm speaking because I was concerned about the recent presentation from the Police Commission's Executive Director. Despite obvious needs for structural change, he came before you with almost no recommendations for reform, citing an ongoing internal review. Let's be clear what's happening. The Police Commission is stalling. They are refusing to engage with this charter reform process because they are protecting the status quo. This confirms exactly why you need to step in. The Police Commission has become wholly aligned with the department it's supposed to regulate. They're operating as a rubber stamp and not as an oversight board. Since they won't recommend changes themselves, I'm asking you to implement 3 specific reforms in the charter. First, professionalize the commission. Overseeing a $1 billion paramilitary organization is not a hobby, it's a full-time job. Currently, the Board of Public Works is the only full-time paid commission in the city. The Police Commission must be elevated to that same full-time paid status. This allows normal working-class Angelenos to serve, not just the wealthy, and ensures they have the time to actually dig into the details rather than just relying on what the chief tells them. Second, break the appointment monopoly. Right now, the mayor appoints all 5 commissioners. This creates a board that is politically safe rather than independent. We need a divided appointment authority. Give seats to the city council, the city attorney, or even a mechanism for direct community selection. We need requirements for diversity on the board. Mandating seats for civil rights attorneys, social workers, or victims of police violence, so the board isn't just full of former prosecutors, corporate lawyers, federal law enforcement. Third, liberate the Inspector General. The Inspector General currently reports to the Commission. If the Commission's captured, the IG is silenced. We need to write independence into the charter, give the IG a fixed term, independent subpoena power, and protection from being fired just for doing their job. Please don't wait for the Police Commission to ask for these changes. They never will. It's up to you to write them into the charter. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Justy Sexton. 1 or 2 minutes.
Commissioners, my name is Justy Sexton, and I'm adding my voice to encourage you to consider the multiple reforms regarding governance and oversight for the LAPD. Admittedly, the job that's been asked of you here is largely thankless. No matter how this ends, plenty of people complain that you did it wrong and that if we'd been in charge, we could have done it better. And then, nonetheless of that, all of our public comments seem to be full of lists of things we'd like you to change and consider, many of which are actually out of scope for the process in front of you. But saving people's lives is within your scope right now. Communities across the country at the city, state, and county level have shown that updated law enforcement reforms and accountability, oversight, and public accessibility have drastically reduced the number of deaths and other harm caused from excessive force, as well as a reduction in the accompanyingly costly lawsuits. In specific, I ask that you review and vote to include in your updated charter drafts amending Section 571 to update the Police Commission to a model with actionable accountability as well as accessible transparency to the citizens. Protect free speech via Section 574, including a provision to explicitly delineate protests as separate from riots and disturbances, and including protection for the safety of journalists to document them. By any means necessary, limit the use of pretextual stops. And finally, because nothing motivates like money, I urge the Commission to move to ensure that the financial cost of police action incurred legal settlements come from within their own budgets, ensuring the burden of misaction is felt by the department itself, and preserving our general budget for infrastructure, libraries, streetlights, and things that actually keep our communities safe. Thank you.
Thank you, Nick. 1 or 2 minutes. Please. Okay. And go.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. My name is Nick Caputo. I'm the Executive Director of Livable Advanced LA, a nonprofit focused on structural governance reform, budget transparency, and long-term state capacity in Los Angeles. In preparation for the Commission's January work, my organization has circulated a charter reform quick reference policy sheet that consolidates recommendations and themes actively being discussed across this process. The purpose of the sheet is to reflect areas of emerging alignment and provide a practical, readable reference for charter-level action, not to get ahead of any organization's formal positions. I want to be clear that I strongly agree with many of the recommendations raised by other organizations here today, particularly around police accountability, liability reform, transparency, public access, and civilian oversight. I would like to add reforms related to how police commissioners are appointed and the ability for the public to recall commissioners when oversight fails. These proposals are central to public safety, civil rights, and rebuilding public trust, and provide us with a similar accountability measure as the public has with the Sheriff's Department. I also want to briefly offer several complementary charter-level ideas that fit squarely within today's personnel and budget discussion. First, budget honesty and comparability. The charter should require a single standardized financial reporting format across all departments with enforceable deadlines and auditable performance metrics. Fragmented reporting obscures inefficiency, weakens oversight, and creates space for abuse. Standardization directly improves service delivery and strengthens anti-corruption systems. At a minimum, city expenditures should be publicly viewable no more than 30 days after they occur. Second, personnel systems must be aligned with performance rather than politics. The charter should modernize civil service rules to allow interoperable job families, continuous recruitment, and routine updates to exams and classifications. Slow hiring and rigid personnel structures undermine public safety, delay infrastructure delivery, and make it harder for young people to see public service as a viable and respected career. Third, long-term costs must be visible at all times. Alongside shifting misconduct settlements out of the general fund and onto departmental budgets, the charter should require clear, plain language annual reporting on pension obligations, legal liabilities, and long-range fiscal exposure. This is a matter of fairness to future residents and basic fiscal integrity. Finally, whistleblower protection should live in the charter itself,
Thank
not
you so
solely
much.
in policy and performance. Thank you very much.
Perfect. And I'm going to pass it over to Kate to administer online public comment.
Sorry, I tried to engage with the iPad multiple times.
Oh, sure. We'll do one more pass in the room at the end.
We're now moving on to remote public comment. Our first speaker is Lionel. Lionel, can you hear us?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, Lionel Martis, Budget Advocate, speaking on my own behalf as an individual. I'd like to thank Rewrite LA for their Saturday event. It was a great event. It was very exciting to see so many people come together. And number two, I believe we need to reform the civil service to streamline the hiring process for non-sworn candidates and for current employees who would like to transfer to other departments, because there are many departments that need more employees to provide services to all Angelinos. And I think that the current civil service needs to be updated to reflect our current time and to make LA governance better for everyone, and to make sure that LAPD is not gobbling up the city's entire budget, because it's not fair for other departments to have understaffing, under budgeted, and they also provide important resources to all Angelinos. So let's make LA fair and equitable for everyone. Thank you, and happy holidays, y'all.
Next speaker is Henri.
Yes. Hi.
How much time would you like?
2 minutes, please.
2 minutes, starting now.
So, a couple of things. I want to go ahead and echo the suggestions that Controller Mejia has put before the board. Number one is giving the controller independent budget.
The main characters.
Designate the controller as a city's chief financial officer. Require minimum qualifications for the controller, namely at minimum a bachelor's degree in finance and accounting and a CPA license. Clarify the controller's audit authority to include audits of all city programs, as well as give him strong subpoena power. Allow the controller's office to hire outside counsel and enshrine the controller's fraud, waste, and abuse functions. I also want to add to the powers vested onto the OIG. They should absolutely be the ones adjudicating any and all police complaints, and all police-related complaints should be independent of the LAPD. They should have no connection into how the investigation therein of complaints is done. And the OIG's office absolutely should have strong subpoena power as such, as well as the ability to hire their own counsel. And the specific minimum budget set aside for the OIG so that they're not slashed and not beholden to political swings. Regardless of who's in power, the OIG's functions, just like the fraud, waste, and abuse programs that the City Controller's Office is pushing for, so too should the OIG's fraud, waste, and abuse and other powers to actually adequately review, audit, and investigate the LAPD should be enshrined and completely independent from the police commissioner or the LAPD as a whole, and as well as the internal affairs. And so with that, I'll yield the rest of my time.
Thank you. Next speaker is Godfrey. Godfrey, how much time would you like?
2 minutes would be great. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, 2 minutes, starting now.
Thank you. Godfrey Blatt, the Deputy Director, LA Forward Institute, building on our letter after reviewing the staff report published. Thank you again so much to the staff and commissioners for reviewing everything and creating this menu of items. I'm commenting in particular on item 8 and 9, but of course ask that all items supported by LA Forward Institute move forward, but I'm going to focus on 8 and 9. Item 8 under police reform is where we're talking about moving liabilities from general fund to the departments. It's currently listed as, yes, this can be accomplished through non-charter action, but we believe that doing this in a non-charter way is limiting and clearly hasn't been done because of lack of political will by elected officials. And that is why we are here with you all, charter commissioners, as folks who are representative more of the public voice. We believe that you deserve more time to engage with this particular idea of moving liabilities from the general fund to the departments and really move this forward to the full commission and back to committee to study this further. We recommend that you all source academics who have studied this type of work and have become experts of this. In particular, there is one in our midst. Her name is Dr. Joanna Schwartz. She's a professor of law at UCLA. She's the country's leading expert on police misconduct litigation and author of a book called Shielded, written in 2023. Her scholarship focuses on the financial impact of settlements, and it's possible that engaging with her in early 2026 will help to sort of flesh out what this liabilities move could look like in a charterized way. The second thing that we want to make sure you build in more time for is item number 9, and so we do ask that you move this forward as well. In particular, we saw that LA Ford Institute and Councilmember McCosker are both really interested in the board's engagement here. We know that Councilmember McCosker did not get time to engage verbally last week. I think he submitted a letter. And so we do ask that you continue to move this forward so that you're able to learn from Councilmember McCosker's point of view, in addition to other experts and community voices around item number 9, which is the Board of Rights revisitation.
Thank you. That's time. Our next speaker is Rob. How much time would you like?
An hour.
Rob, can you hear us?
This happened last time. Go to the next speaker. We'll come back.
Okay, we're going to come back to Rob. Our next speaker is Anthony. Anthony, how much time would you like?
2 minutes, please.
Okay, 2 minutes starting now.
Great. Thank you to the commissioners for taking up these issues. In particular, I want to urge the commission to bring special attention to the proposals for policing reform. I think there was a great demonstration of how important this work was at last Thursday's meeting. There was an excellent presentation by representatives of Catalyst California and Black Lives Matter about the current problems with LAPD and the current harms that exist. And they presented several excellent proposals that would serve to increase transparency, oversight, and accountability in relation to LAPD and to reduce harm to Angelenos, particularly in over-policed communities. However, I thought it was just as revealing to see the presentations by the executive director of the LA Police Commission and the deputy chief of professional standards at LAPD, who made it clear with their comments that they see no urgency whatsoever for a significant reform and no problem with the ways that both the police commission and LAPD operate. The scope of their ideas was made clear, and one suggested that a significant reform was that the police commission was going to move from annual to quarterly report backs to the commission. It is clear that the LAPD and the police commission cannot reform themselves, and so far, our elected officials have been slow to take up the mantle of leadership. These are structural issues in terms of how our LAPD operates that cause our current situation, which is costing lives, which is costing trust of the public, and which is costing us millions of dollars in taxpayer funds for liability settlements that do nothing to alter the fundamental problematic behaviors of the LAPD and its officers. So I urge the commission to take up these matters and for this committee in particular to bring to the rest of the commission all of the reforms that have been proposed to the LAPD and to communicate to the larger commission the urgency of this issue for Los Angeles and its future. Thank you very much, and I yield the rest of my time.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Jamie. Jamie, how much time would you like?
2 minutes.
2 minutes starting now.
First, I would like to say that the staff of this commission took it upon themselves to edit my comment and remove the PDFs that I had attached and replace them with links. Please do not do that. The articles were important and I wanted them to be accessible to the public. The reason that I wanted to talk about these articles is because I wanted to humanize the problem with the LAPD essentially investigating itself. A couple years ago, a woman walked into LAPD, Phyllis Golden Godley, to report that she had been raped. She'd been raped by a powerful man. And the cops that took her report took it upon themselves to inform her rapist. Her rapist was a powerful and rich CEO. It was just reported in the last week that Corey Palka, the cop who did this, nothing happened to him. Nothing has happened to him. And that the LAPD brass took it upon itself to essentially interfere with the investigation into his misdeeds. It is so clear from that example that they are not capable of policing themselves. I want you to think about it. I really want you to try to put yourself into this person's shoes. They went in good faith to report a crime that had happened to them. And that police officer immediately went to the person that she said did the harm. And they told her. I've heard cops say that one of the worst things that you could do would be to share a murder book. And a murder book is essentially the list of like all of the details of crime with the suspect. What this cop did was he shared the rape book, and nothing happened to him. No charges are going to be brought because now it's past the statute of limitations, and it is in part past the statute of limitations because of the interference.
That's time. Thank you, Jamie. The next speaker is Jeremy. Jeremy, how much time would you like?
2 minutes, please.
2 minutes, starting now.
Hi, this is Jeremy Payne with Calais, California. Apologies I'm not able to be there in person, but wanted to provide public comment to thank this committee for allowing Calais, California, as well as Ground Game LA, BLM LA, the League of Women Voters, and LA Forward to present our joint recommendations on policing our community safety reform. I have been following this commission since day one, and so I have been seeing kind of the ask of the public to have a platform and a space to talk about policing issues as it relates to the charter reform process. The public has raised this as a public interest as well as a charter interest, and seen this as a human need to really address the flaws in the system. And so I want to kind of just elevate that since June, we've been hearing the calls, and last week you're able to kind of see the faces and hear the stories of those impacted by the system. And so I want to encourage this committee to share those stories, share your experience last week and today with the full commission so they understand the urgency and importance of these reforms and recommendations that were shared out. And so I hope that you're able to do that with this quick turnaround of this Thursday. But again, just want to ensure that the full commission understands the urgency of this matter. And so thank you, and I'll leave the rest of my time.
Thank you. And we're now back to Rob. Rob, can you hear us?
Yep.
Okay, how much time would you like?
2 minutes, please.
2 minutes, starting now.
I wanted to just start by addressing the issue of periodic charter reform and the question of whether a charter commission can place something directly on the ballot. There is some commentary at the end from the charter staff that says, whereas the state constitution authorizes an elected charter reform commission to place measures directly on the ballot, state law does not provide the same clear authority to an appointed commission. And I don't know if they're just sloppy or they don't know what they're talking about, but that actually is not the case. Factually, that is incorrect. The state constitution only addresses the fact that an elected commission can be started via initiative or council action. The stuff you're referring to is in the government code, something very different as far as the ease with which that could be changed. I will also just say this is something that came up in the 90s. And our city attorney, Mayor Jim Hahn, actually said we could do this without a charter change. So that is notable. Without a charter change, our previous city attorney was saying we could do it. We had a lovely turnout at the previous meeting, and this one as well, on the issue of LAPD, and I think it's just interesting. What does it say that the most well-attended Charter Reform Commission meeting was on a topic that Karen's minions, Justin Ramirez and Raymond Mesa, were conspiring to block conversation of. I will also note that the staff report does not mention something we highlighted, and that is the previous council motions asking for the pensions of city officials convicted of felonies to be stripped, something that the state and county have. LAPD, we saw just how unserious they were. This is all about delaying any kind of potential conversation. We saw what Mayor Bass did last week to the council. She thinks, maybe we can pay for all of these cops by just eliminating all of our city council and making Marquise and Karen kings for life and rule the city in peace. I don't think that's the way we should do things.
Thank you, Rob. That's time. And that concludes remote public comment.
And was there anyone in the room that missed the first pass of public comment? Come on up. 1 or 2 minutes.
2 minutes, please.
Alrighty, and I'll let you get.
Hello, my name is Robert. I'm from the Sox Hill neighborhood. I wanted to primarily echo support for other commenters saying that police liability needs to be moved out of the general budget. I would like to see police liability moved onto the individual officers with the expectation that they would be then required to carry liability insurance with coverage of perhaps $50 million or $100 million payout. I would also like to echo a commenter's sentiment towards giving additional powers and raising requirements for the city controller's office, that they should be required to have a CPA license and also be given the power of subpoena. And finally, I would like to echo the sentiment that city pensions and other investments should have a BDS resolution passed to make sure that our investments are not supporting the genocidal apartheid state of Israel. Thank you. I yield the remainder of my time.
Thank you so much. Madam Chair, that does conclude public comment.
I saw two more hands.
Oh, I didn't see you guys. Sorry.
Maybe.
Is it just
one?
I'll go after her.
2? All right. Well,
Feel free
come
to
on
line
up.
up.
Come. Yeah.
Sorry. Can I have 2 minutes, please? Okay.
1 second. Go.
Hi, my name is Lizzie Weinrob. I was born and raised in Los Angeles, and I live in Silver Lake, and I'm here as a resident, but I do serve on the governing board of Silver Lake Neighborhood Council. I'm also a member of Democratic Socialists of America, Los Angeles. We're all taking a very big interest in this charter reform process. I'm here in support of strong charter-level police reform. LAPD holds outsized power over public safety policy, budget decisions, and discipline, while the people most affected by policing have very little meaningful recourse. First, I urge you to advance the proposal requiring LAPD to pay legal settlements from its own budget. Right now, the cost of misconduct is shifted onto the general fund, and that structure protects the department and leaves residents paying for harm they did not cause. While every year we struggle to find budgets for really basic city functions, like street maintenance and other things that make me feel safe in public, like streetlights. Aligning liability with the department is a basic accountability measure. Second, the charter must guarantee public access to police misconduct and disciplinary data. Transparency cannot depend on political will or internal discretion. Democratic oversight requires consistent public access to information. Third, I support charter reforms that give the mayor and city council authority over LAPD that is greater than the police commission. As it stands, power is fragmented in a way that shields the department from democratic control. Public safety should be governed by institutions accountable to the people, not by internal power structures. Regardless of political perspective on LAPD, working class communities bear the brunt of the consequences of the current system every single day. These are obvious structural failures that require charter level change, and I urge you to advance these reforms now while we can. Thank you for your time and for all of your hard work.
Thank you. Come on up. 1 or 2 minutes.
Let's do 1 minute.
Go.
Hello, my name is Michael Levenkamp. I'm a resident of the city of LA, particularly in the North Hills East. I concur with the rest of the comments made today in support of the LAPD being, instead of the charges, any sort of legal ramifications to be charged to LAPD's budget instead of the city general budget. Per the recent information from Kevin Mayhaw's office, as well as a couple of articles saying that there was $400 million from the city budget used over the last 6 or 7 years in total just for lawsuits involving LAPD. Other than that, I yield my time.
Thank you so much. All right, and now that does conclude public comment.
All right, Next.
For the record, if I can say that Commissioner Thomas arrived about 4:30.
Yes, it was closer to 4:25, just for
Thank you.
Next, I just wanted to check in the room if there was any neighborhood council community impact statements that were filed for today and would like to speak. Seeing none, we're going to continue with the rest of the agenda for today. First item of business is approval of the meeting minutes of our December 11th Personnel and Budget Committee meeting. Do we have a motion to approve the meeting minutes?
I'm going to have to abstain, although I did watch the meeting. I feel like I wasn't officially present, so I can't vote on the minutes.
All right, the chair moves the motion. Is there a second? And after the second, we can have discussion if there's any edits that needs to be done. And then just for clarification, Commissioner Thomas, I think once we move the motion and second it, then we'll open it up for discussion for any edits to be made.
So
Yes.
then I second.
Yes, okay. And then any discussion about the meeting minutes for last week? One last call for any comments or edits to be made on the December 11th meeting notes.
Did we ever?
Into the mic.
Oh, I'm sorry. I know we had mentioned that we wanted the presentations that were made to us to be made to the full commission. Is that something that's going to happen or no?
That's not something that would be in minutes.
But we can talk about it in the agenda item for today.
But we've been talking about it since forever. And I don't understand how we talk about things and they don't make it into the minutes. If we talk about it, it should be in the minutes, is what I think.
Unless there's a valid motion that's seconded and if there's a vote, then it doesn't. It gets reflected.
So
you can make that motion today.
I move that the folks who presented in our meeting present to the full commission. And I'd like to add to that motion that the meeting that's scheduled for Thursday, that it be postponed.
I was on the table right now is the motion on the minutes.
We finished that.
No, it hasn't been voted on.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, I second the motion. Let's vote.
Okay, seeing that there's no discussion relevant to the meeting minutes, we're going to approve the meeting minutes for December 11th.
Okay, so now I move that the meeting that is scheduled for Thursday be moved and that it be a full commission meeting and that the presenters who presented those very, very wonderful, probably the best we've seen, that they be allowed to present before the full commission. Is that an adequate motion? I'm not a politician.
So it could be framed definitely as a recommendation for the committee to approve the motion for those two things. They could be voted on together, or they could be voted on separately, since they are slightly different. You're asking two different things in one motion, but they can be still together as one motion.
Okay, I would like for them to be together as one motion.
Yeah, and then that recommendation, if approved by the committee, that would be a recommendation.
In this moment, so what I'm hearing is a motion from Commissioner Thomas. I will second it to have the discussion amongst our committee members, and so I think I'm going to open the floor for that for my fellow commissioners. If you want to jump into conversation, Commissioner Field.
Yeah, and I am sorry it's one motion. I don't think it's appropriate for our committee to cancel a meeting that enough of us apparently are planning to attend. I wouldn't mind the agenda being modified, depending what we get done tonight on this report. I just don't think it's appropriate to request that the whole commission cancel a meeting when we have so little time and we're not going to meet again until the new year. I think the commission should meet. Whether the agenda needs modification, I think depends on what we get done here.
Yes, go for it.
I don't mind modifying the agenda. I don't think we should be talking about police reform in a meeting that many of the people who are advocates for police reform won't be at. I mean, this is the holidays. They have already started. Right now, at 9 o'clock, I really should have my computer out inputting grades. So I just don't, I think this is too important. And I think we need to show the community who came out, like they haven't come out for anything else, that we're taking this seriously. And so I don't think that a meeting on Thursday signals that we're taking it seriously. I think it signals that it's business as usual, we're checking boxes. Now, that's my personal opinion. We need this police reform issue should have been a committee in and of itself, as should have been housing, affordable housing. And those are two issues that we have not talked about. They have not come up. We have not talked about the unhoused. In fact, you know, in contacting folks who are advocates for the unhoused, they refused to come and present to us because they said, and I quote, the only thing that they want to do is have on the record that we showed up and pretend that they got input from the community and then they do whatever they want to do. And so that's where I'm coming from. I could organize the motion in such a way that maybe it would be palatable, but at the end of the day, we should not be meeting on police reform, even though we're not going to vote on police reform. We should not be meeting on police reform on Thursday. That does not look like we're taking this seriously. It just does not. We had more people come out for police reform than we have ever had come out, especially black folks. And I have been saying from day one, when you bring black people in this room, you're going to have a different set of issues. And so now that black people have been in the room, we want to say their issues are late. We don't have time for them. We don't have time for them. And I don't want to hear this issue of time. I just don't. I'm tired of hearing it. Because my time is just as valuable as everybody else's. And I make the time to be here. This is what I signed up for. And I make the time to be here because I am tired of the people of Los Angeles not being heard. I'm tired of it. I'm also tired, and this had nothing to do with emotion, but while I'm on my 20-minute rant, is what they call them, I am tired of feeling as if I'm staff and not a commissioner. If I ask staff to do something, I expect them to do it. I don't expect to have to go on and argue with staff in order to do what we are desiring. And so, again, I think I think that given the fact that we are paying upwards, up to $500,000 for folks to bring in the community to speak to us, yet I had to plead and cajole Black-led organizations to come in here and have a conversation with us. I don't know how the people were selected in terms of who presented to us. I don't know who chose them, but I do know that they didn't look like me. And as I've said before, we are doing this reform because of the racist comments. Now, we're just talking about comments. Those comments are not just, they represent a particular ideology. And I'm still trying to find out, where's the money? We have the comments, but typically, when people who hold the purse are racist, they withhold the purse from people of color. And so I've said that 1,000 times. It's not the first time I've said it. I've asked about ranked choice voting. Yes, I'm ranting. But I've asked about ranked choice voting and the impact that it will have on communities of color. That has never been answered. I've tried to figure out, how is it possible that with 328,000 Black people, that we will ever have representation? I've been trying to figure that out. And no one has addressed that. No one. In the same way, the police gets the lion's share of our budget. And what do? They don't even protect us from these renegades wearing masks calling themselves a federal police force. Why are we paying them this money? This is what this discussion is about. This is why the people have come out. And so at the end of the day, I could care less about what the mayor thinks, what the city council thinks, what anybody else thinks. Because I've been out there and I've seen what they've been doing to people. I've seen the violence that they have visited upon people who are only exercising their right to protest. And so, again, I don't think we need a meeting on Thursday, not just because I won't be there, but I question whether or not it's going to look as if we are taking seriously the most important issue that Angelenos face, and that is police reform. I have spoken to the mayor on several occasions, in friendly environments and not. I asked about police brutality liability. No one knew anything about it. This is what they claimed. No one knew that Black and brown bodies lying in the street, killed by the police, make money for fat white guys in three-piece suits. No one knew that. Trading it on Wall Street. So I'm sorry. We don't have time. We have 2 days. 2 days. Is it? I think it's 2 days. Yeah. We have 2 days. I don't think we're ready to deal with this. I think if we took time, all of the groups that presented to us, they had great, wonderful presentations, but all of them said that they were rushed. If we took the time to deal with this issue, I think we can make headway with it. If we took the time to deal with the fact that most people, people of color specifically, everybody else generally, are not pleased with policing in this city the way it's being done. Not pleased. Over 70% of Angelenos are not pleased with the way policing is done. And the only reason that policing continues to get a rubber stamp is because it is connected to whether or not somebody thinks they're going to be elected. If you're an elected official and you appear to be soft on crime, it's almost a kiss of death. And so we need to take that away from elected officials and do what is effective and expedient. If your agency, your organization is not getting the job done, we shouldn't continue to dump money in it. If you are ineffective, why do we continue? Why are you the only organization, agency in government that can always count on funding? Because you've made elected officials, you force them into this box where they must appear to be tough on crime, so that they can get elected. When the truth is, the numbers are mathing, and the math says that you're less than 1% effective. 2 students killed at Boston University. I don't know if ICE is in Boston, they probably are. But the guy initially got away. Boston University. Probably because the police are running around with ICE, escorting them. This is a serious issue. I'm sorry, Madam Chair.
Do not apologize.
But I'm black, I tell stories, that's what I do.
I'm going to take a moment for Executive Director to make a couple of clarification and comments, and then I'm going to put myself in the queue for my comments.
Sure. Thank you so much, Madam Chair. I just want to start off with framing both today and Thursday's planned meeting. These, as some of our residents who come to our meetings kind of know the cadence that we deliver these staff reports a few days in advance of the committee meeting for the committees to, for each committee, and we've done this with 2 committees so far. This is a 3rd committee now going through this process, that the committee gets a chance to do a first pass on the staff report, ask questions, get public comment, and that report, of course, gets fed into this document, especially when groups, and we've definitely made corrections when groups are like, oh, you have us recommending 5C, we actually recommended 5B, so we make those adjustments on the way. We'll have a couple adjustments to make to the staff report that we'll bring on Thursday as well. So the plan for today, as well as Thursday, is first pass presentation, answer questions, let the community also give public comment, but not at this point move any items forward or table any items, but bring it back. I believe the committee, this committee meets again on January 15th. Correct me if I'm wrong. January 15th is the next time that this...
Don't tell me we meet on January 15th, Martin Luther King's birthday.
I'll double check on that. I don't. Ooh, that might. I think it's. Is it celebrated on that day this year? We'll double check on that. We've had that.
Still his birthday, whether it's celebrated on that day or not, it's still his birthday.
Okay. So again, we've publicized that date for a while.
See, this is my issue.
So if I can finish first.
Yeah, you can finish, but this is my issue. Because what I took from what you said was, oh, then you should have known. You should have said it before now. I would have thought that somebody would have known that January 15th was Martin Luther King's birthday. then I wouldn't have to be the black guy that says it. I'm just saying,
We've definitely taken feedback when we've scheduled things previously on Jewish holidays.
I didn't ask you about Jewish
I'm just
holidays.
saying,
I asked you about
commissioners have flagged this for us in advance.
Don't tell me what commissioners have done. Why do you not know, or why did staff not know? Especially since Donald Trump is trying to cancel Martin Luther King's birthday. So I'm just saying, this is the thing. Perception is everything. And there's a whole lot of perceptions that are leading the community to think something that's not necessarily true. And so we gotta straighten this out. And one of the ways that we do that is that we honor the voices of community who have come out en masse and said, take police reform seriously. I would even argue, since it was the only issue that we got, I don't even know how many letters, at least 100. There's so many I can't even count. We haven't gotten letters like that on anything else. So I would even argue that we make that a top priority, because that appears to be what the community wants.
Excuse me, I'm just getting very confused. We had a motion on the floor, we didn't vote yet.
Yes, we're still in discussion, and I haven't given my
the
comments
staff
yet.
input is part of discussion. I just want to comment, having checked the calendar, I don't care what the current president says. This city will celebrate Martin Luther King Day on Monday, January 19th. That's the official date. That's what it would be in the entire nation if there were not certain situations currently. Thursday, January 15th may be the actual birthday, but it is not the official holiday, just for information.
Okay, I'm going to advise for Chair to follow up with schedule after this meeting regarding specifically the January 15th, and then please, Executive Director, finish your comments, and then I will give my comments after.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair. And thank you, Commissioner Field, for that information on the 19th. So, sorry, to reframe again, Tuesday, today, Thursday are first readings. Receive and file is the only vote that we're looking for and planning for both today and Thursday. Opportunities for the community, as Commissioner Thomas said, he's concerned about people not being heard. Thursday is an opportunity for people to be heard. It is not the only opportunity for people to be heard on this. There are going to be at minimum, 2 other opportunities after Thursday where this report will have public hearings, including the full range from the 2-year budget cycle to police reform. So those the future meetings have potential for voting things forward as other committees have when they've gotten to that point, and or tabling things as other committees haven't gotten to the point. But today and Thursday are just opportunities. Again, we've noticed this meeting, and I think we could lose credibility by canceling a meeting that we've already noticed. And I don't want to do that. Again, it's taking an opportunity for public comment and commissioners to give feedback off the table, but it's not the only opportunity. There will be subsequent opportunities for that. I just want to respond to a couple other things that the commissioner flagged, including ranked choice voting. That research is ongoing, and there's going to be updated memos going to the government structure committee. To your point, we've definitely done some research on some of the issues that have affected communities of color and communities where English is not their first language that have challenges sometimes with RCV. So that research is going to be reflected in the future. You also pointed out you had questions about who chose presenters. We've solicited presenters from yourself and from all commissioners and the public, and up to this point we haven't turned anyone away. So it's not about choosing, it's about scheduling, and so far I think we've had an opportunity to have everyone who's wanted to be scheduled up to this date give presentations. So I have not been choosing. I've been working with all of you and the community on lining those up. Including Commissioner, I just want to, specifically speak to Commissioner Mack, who definitely helped us frame last Thursday's meeting and reach out to certain individuals. And we did reach out to everyone that you actually, Commissioner Thomas, asked us to reach out to as well. And
I have a couple of comments. I think first thing is then clarification that for today's meeting, committee meeting, and for Thursday, the intention is for it to be a temperature check where we are not moving on any actions.
Correct.
Okay, that's first clarification. I think second comment that I have, and I think I'm just being transparent here, and staff, you all know this, but I've been, long before I found that Commissioner Thomas wasn't going to be present at the meeting, I was flagging this December 18th date just from a timeline process, understanding that this is not the final conversation, but I think just flagging it from a community aspect. And my experience being community is this timeline is a little too fast for my personal preference, and so I voiced that as well. I think just even looking at today's meeting and Thursday, for anyone watching this meeting, this committee meeting, and for them to submit a public comment after being informed from what we discussed in this meeting committee, it is a pretty short timeline to get a public comment for the Thursday meeting, just in terms of time frame and submitting it on time for it to be presented to us.
sure, we can forward today's public comment as well onto Thursday.
But I think I'm saying that there's going to be additional comments based on whatever we discuss on today that might not end up on the Thursday meeting, which I think will be informative. I think that's just a piece that I personally found to be a miss. I think I do agree with Commissioner Thomas' points that I think some of the presenters and community members have shared just a little bit rushed timeline. And I don't know about you all here today, Commissioner Field and Thomas, but I do have a lot of comments and feedback and suggestions for the staff report. And I think my understanding is that 2 days is not enough for all of that to be fully fleshed out to present to the full commission. So I think those are just continues to be some of my concerns in terms of presenting it to full commission, although understanding it's a temperature check. I think just also want to voice my opinion on that. I think the last thing I wanted to comment is just generally, because I have the privilege on being on two committees, I have the different experience on being on the government structure. We've been meeting for a couple of months now. We had a lot of presentations. We actually voted back in November and have not brought that to full commission yet. And I think just really just giving some context that we've only had 2 weeks of personnel and budget committee meetings, and we're already doing temperature check and moving it to full commission. And so I think it's just, I get the idea that this is not the final staff report and all of that, but I do think that we are moving a little bit faster than the other committees have. And so I think I'm just want to be mindful of that as well. And I think for that reason, I think I am still in preference of kind of, to me, I think there is more value in having this staff report be more built out based on our feedback, and then allowing for the public to react and give their feedback, and then us then bring it to full commission. Because I feel like we're going to show up on Thursday, whole commission is going to have a lot of questions and feedback as well. And I think we're in a position where we've only had presentations 2 times, and so I think it's, I personally don't feel like I am prepared. I don't think the staff is fully prepared. I think we're all kind of we're still getting started. The ball is still moving. And so I think we owe it to the public, but also the commission, the full commission, to give them something. And so I think for that reason, I am kind of in favor of more time, for more engagement, and for this to be more built out. But I'm going to open it up one last time to fellow commissioners. And then Executive Director, if you want to do final remarks after them, and then we're going to vote. Any other comments from fellow commissioners?
I think you said it.
All right, any final remarks?
Yeah, I definitely, I hear your feedback, and we've talked about this a couple times, and I appreciate your time talking this out with me, and I think we can both be right, and I think we probably are both right, and that's one of the situations that we find ourselves in. We can always have more time to give both the committee members, the full commission, and the public with these documents. I would 100% agree with you and say it's the right call to council Thursday's meeting if Thursday was about voting certain items, but that's just not what the plan, that's not what's going to happen on Thursday. So I take it from as well as a community perspective as making sure that the community doesn't have this opportunity to give public comment in front of the full commission before the end of the year, taking that off of the table. And I would not feel comfortable doing that, especially 48 hours, less than 48 hours before that meeting. We've triple checked with the entire commission. We will have more than quorum at that meeting.
So my question is, are you doing it or are we doing it? Because I'm willing to accept whatever the fallout is as a result. So and I think this is something that we haven't discussed. What is it that you're doing and what is it that we're doing? If we're saying, as the committee, that we would prefer for us to not have this meeting, and then you're saying that you have a responsibility. So who has the lion's share of authority? I mean, that's a rhetorical question because we know that it's you. Been proven over and over again. We're saying, as commissioners, that we don't feel comfortable, at least two of us, that we don't feel comfortable taking up this issue in the full commission, given several factors. Number one, the community is already looking at us and critiquing us because it took us so long to get here, to even bring it up. That they had to organize a letter writing campaign to get police reform on the agenda. I mean, that's an insult and quite frankly disgraceful. And then we were told that this was not something that the mayor or city council, this wasn't a priority of theirs. They must be sleeping under a rock if this is not a priority of theirs. They certainly are not concerned about the citizens of Los Angeles if police reform is not something that they're concerned about. I mimic those same sentiments when it comes to affordable housing and the unhoused. Both police reform should have been a committee, and so should affordable housing, dealing with the issue of the unhoused. Those should have been their separate committees. But because our chair determined what committees we would have without us having any voice whatsoever, we find ourselves in this situation. This is the reason that we're in this situation. We did not have a democratic process in the way in which we would determine what committees would be formed.
I'm sorry, that's just not factually true.
It is factually true.
According to the bylaws, section 3, committees on this subject are purviews shall be created by a duly seconded motion by the approval of the majority of the commission.
Which is the reason that
members of each committee shall then be appointed by the
Which is the reason that we had that there was a motion that was put forward. Which is the reason that I was not going to sit through your staff report, because what you do, this is a 51-page document. I'm supposed to have read through this. And understand what it says, because what happens is, this is what I've seen over and over and over again. We get these documents, and then as we are going through them carefully, we notice some things that we think, I don't know if that's what we ought to be doing or the direction that we ought to be taking. And instead of taking that seriously, we get, well, y'all approved it.
You did.
I know. And what I'm asking you to do, since we approved it, is to give us the time that we need to process what you give us.
And that's what we're doing.
No, you're not. That's what you're not. I'm telling you, you're not.
Okay.
You haven't given us the time to process this.
I mean,
excuse me.
I'm gonna move it over
for a while.
I'm gonna have Commissioner Fields wrap up the discussion for this motion portion, and then I'm gonna have staff to read out what the motion is on the table.
Yeah, and I just want to say, I came in today, and the first thing I said to our chair was, please let's talk police reform first. We have like 4 things, 1, 2, 3, 4 on here, and that should be first. I did not realize that Commissioner Thomas was among those who will not be with us Thursday evening. And that obviously is a factor in his concern about that meeting occurring and what is on that agenda. I want to say I was very concerned that we didn't have adequate time if we were starting to vote on this stuff. And again, I was told that we are, how did you phrase it, Chair Mack? We're taking a temperature, we're getting more information. This is still the exploration, and I would like to get on to it, and I'm still requesting that that be the first thing we talk about this evening, that we go through the 13 items, we get further information, we give our thoughts as of today, and you know, that's my comment on what I'd like us to be doing.
Okay, Executive Director.
I agree with you, 100%.
Yeah. Executive Director, can you read the motion on the table?
And Commissioner Thomas, please help me with this. So the motion is to recommend canceling December 18th meeting. And what was the back half of it?
It was recommending that we cancel December 8th. That's the most important part.
Yep.
And that we have and that the presenters are
Oh yes, thank you, sorry, the presenters.
to the full commission.
Okay.
Now, if the presenters can present to the full commission on the 18th, then maybe I would change my mind. Maybe. If the presenters can present, but I don't know if that gives them enough time to prepare. You know, so we still have, 6 in one hand, half a dozen the other. So I want the motion as it stands. I want us to vote on it. And
So for clarification, the motion on the table is to recommend not having the December 18th meeting, and also further consideration to bring some of the presenters who presented to committee to full commission.
yes, that's the motion.
Okay, the staff have that on record?
Yep.
All right, I'm gonna call roll call. Commissioner Fields?
No.
Commissioner Mack, I vote yes for the purpose of having this on record and for full commission to know kind of where we are at. Commissioner Thomas?
Yes.
Okay, motion passed.
And Madam Chair, as I do with all meetings, I work with the chair, our commission chair on this, and I'll make sure he's aware of it. I've been talking to him throughout this process and let him know everyone's concerns. Like I said, he was at least in agreement on keeping the 18th, but I'll discuss with him again after this.
Yes, that is helpful. So motion passed. Please have that recorded in our meeting minutes for this committee meeting. We're going to move forward with agenda item number 1. Staff, can you read it into record?
Sure, thank you, Madam Chair. Discussion relative to potential personnel and budget-related charter amendments, including but not limited to issues related to budget process, periodic charter reform, periodic charter review, police reform, LA City Employees Retirement System, lasers, and possible action regarding related report back requests and related matters.
All right. And then I'm going to pass it over for staff to administer that presentation as well.
Fantastic, and we're going to skip ahead to the police reform slides. If you can give us a couple seconds to find that in the presentation. It's a little later. There we go. Oh, back. Alrighty, and I'll start with just opening up, and thank you, commissioners. Thank you to the public for joining us tonight, both in person, virtually. The report in front of you and on the screen is a summary of the larger document that was posted Friday evening. We appreciate all the public comment and feedback, and of course, we appreciate the groups that submitted the recommendations, which are how we built the document. This document is again the culmination of recommendations from community groups, from city council members, from city departments, and all of those, we pull them into one document and kind of provide a little more context on some of them, do case studies and citations, and pull them into that bigger document. But this is going to be the slide deck that we're going to walk you through. I believe my colleague Brianna is going to start us off on the subject of police reform. Thank you.
Okay. So the first reform is racial and socioeconomic equity value statement and limit the use of pretextual stops. So Catalyst California, Ground Game LA, LA Forward Institute, and the League of Women Voters of Greater Los Angeles propose including a statement in section 570 about racial and socioeconomic equity values and limiting the use of pretextual stops, explaining the LAPD should be exercised with maximum respect for racial and socioeconomic equity and prioritize care rather than harm and prevent harm to historically marginalized communities. In exercising its powers and duties, the department and its officers shall not conduct pretextual stops. For context, pretextual stops are when officers stop either a pedestrian or a driver for a minor charge and then search for evidence of a larger crime. We provided some examples in Berkeley, California. Their city council voted in February of 2021 to deprioritize traffic stops in their city for low-level offenses and focus on driving violations rather that are related to traffic safety. In 2022, Seattle, Washington's then interim police chief wrote a letter to the Inspector General's office announcing that the police department would no longer treat certain minor or non-safety traffic violations such as vehicle registration tabs, missing front license plates, cracked windshields, and not wearing a bicycle helmet as valid reasons for a traffic stop.
Okay, Commissioner Futh.
Yes, I just want to express my support for the material in italics, which I believe is suggested language, and I also want to add a phrase. I'll just read it quickly. In exercising, this would be an addition to the charter. It's not in there. I believe it isn't replacing anything. I believe it's just added language. In exercising the powers and duties provided under this section, the police department and its officers shall always act to prioritize the sanctity of the life, health, safety, and constitutional rights of all the people of the city of Los Angeles. An officer shall not stop or detain the operator of a motor vehicle based on a vehicle equipment violation or a non-moving, i.e. administrative violation. I would like to add to that regarding the equipment or non-moving violation, simply the phrase that does not involve public safety. My only concern here is there's certain equipment things that are actually safety. Like if my brake lights don't work, I know that for people in other communities who aren't old white ladies, who don't have problems with the police, I know it can be pretextual, but I do feel like I would not like to prevent the police from things that are genuinely dangerous that have to do with the car. And, you know, that's just my personal suggestion. Obviously, I agree with the language. I just want to be sure we can have the stops necessary if there's a safety thing involved. Similarly, I would not support, and the suggestion doesn't mention bicycles, but I think not wearing a helmet is very dangerous, and we should be able to have people stopped and pointed out they need their helmet. But okay.
Commissioner Thomas.
I don't even know what to say. I will say this. Dejan Kassi was stopped by the police and killed by the police, riding a bicycle in the wrong direction. So I think it's important to understand that I don't see this as policy. We're trying to save people's lives. And at the end of the day, if someone wants to ride a bike without a helmet, I have a brand new bike that I bought. I haven't worn it because I don't want to wear the helmet. It looks goofy to me. And I'm afraid that if I fall, I might get hurt. So I haven't rode the bike, you know. But I don't think the police, I don't think that's their responsibility. Yeah. You know, I really don't. I think we don't need to give police officers reasons to put Angelino's lives in danger and their own. And their own. It's not just the fact that there may be more appropriate ways of doing this. The police are killing black and brown folks for literally nothing. The police believe that they deserve to be respected, that it is a crime to say things to them that they don't like. And they visit violence on people who do so. And so I don't want the police to have if you are not committing a crime, you don't need to be engaging the police. Because the truth be told, if a crime is being committed, they ain't around anyway. Their data says that they don't. Their own data says that they don't stop crime and they don't solve crime. And so I think we have to demystify policing. It is social control. They do more to control and monitor and surveil low-income communities of color than they do solving crime. If more police was the solution and more police engagement was the solution to solving crimes, low-income communities of color would be the safest places in the country. They don't surveil Beverly Hills like this. They don't surveil Hancock Park like this. They only surveil, they only engage low-income communities of color. And we need to stop that. Pretextual stops shouldn't even be a thing. In 1971, there was the Lyons case against the city of Los Angeles where they were trying to get them to outlaw the chokehold. Had the Supreme Court considered that if you are black, they did not allow it and make it unconstitutional because they said with Mr. Lyons, what is the likelihood of this happening to you again? Well, if you are a black person living in a low-income community of color, it's more likely than not. It's more likely than not. And if they had outlawed the chokehold, Eric Gardner would still be with us today. They'd have made it unconstitutional. And so this is how important this is. And we have an opportunity to do some of the stuff that elected officials either can't do or won't do with this charter. And so I don't think whether you have a tail light out, whatever you have, I think whether you're driving an unregistered car, if you're not committing a crime, if you're not doing these things in the process of committing a crime, I don't think you need to be engaged by the police. It's just my thought and my feeling, because we know that they use these things to step across the line.
Executive Director, do you have comments in response to the comments that our
No,
commissioners made?
this is just feedback for us. You know, we aren't going to be incorporating, again, because there aren't any votes, we aren't going to be incorporating anything for comments where, you know, Commissioner had some, save that for definitely a subsequent motion down the road for all.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
I just thought I saw your hand.
Oh yeah, that was all I wanted to say. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. I'm gonna have staff continue with the rest. And then I think for purposes of kind of how we want to run this, and then commissioners feel free to kind of give your feedback, but my thought process was, because we have, at least for this section, we have 12. Do you want to do it, take it by like every 2, and then give our...
We're going by the...
I see.
Yeah.
Okay.
And is that's...
Do you want to do it by bullet point as well?
Yeah, I think that's the easiest
then
for
let's
us
just
to
do
do.
that.
Yeah,
Let's
yeah,
continue with
because
that.
that's what the...
I was confused by that. I was looking for that document.
Sorry, it's right here.
Oh, this is it?
Yes.
And so for members of the public, we are referring to 2 documents. We have one with more context, it's a staff report memo, and then we also on the screen as well, we have the presentation slides.
Both, yeah, and they're both posted on the website.
All right, and then we're gonna have staff continue on with number 2.
Oh, okay, I see.
Yeah. Follow it all over.
So number 2 is improve public accessibility to the Board of Police Commissioners. So Charter Section 571 currently addresses the powers of and term limits for the Board of Police Commissioners. However, the section doesn't address requirements for public accessibility. So the board holds meetings every Tuesday, normally at 9:30 a.m. They publish an agenda beforehand and provide a total of 45 minutes for public comment, where members of the public may speak for up to a total of 3 minutes. The police commissioner meetings also provide a telephone dial-in option to submit public comment virtually, and they will provide a translator upon request. So the organizations mentioned earlier, Catalyst California, Ground Game LA, LA Forward Institute, and the League of Women Voters of Greater Los Angeles propose that the Board of Police Commissioners meetings be scheduled and held in a manner that maximizes access and participation for all members of the public. For example, increased language access measures, more accessible meeting locations, more accessible meeting dates and times with considerations to people who are working and things like that, and then sufficient prior notice of meetings and providing a meaningful amount of time for members of the public to provide public comment, so extending the 45-minute time frame.
Okay, we're gonna start with Commissioner Food. I'm gonna put myself in the queue, and then Commissioner Thomas.
Thank you. Yeah, I wanted a clarification because at the end it says this is not possible via non-charter action. So just for my own clarity, the charter designates the day and time that they meet? That's actually charter details? Or is that somewhere else? Or do they decide themselves? Because, I mean, I'm just trying to figure out, is this actually charter language? I know the council stuff is in the charter, and the council certainly wants less restriction in potential reforms from our commission, but, I mean, does anybody know?
Let me triple check.
Okay, and the reason I mention it is I would favor the charter giving general guidance around not just the police commission, but all the commissions, that they, for example, alternate evening and daytime meetings, similar to our constraints or our, whatever you call them, structure, thank you, better word. And, you know, in terms of that, accessible location, I mean, I think it's hard to get to City Hall. Maybe they could meet once a month in you know, another part of town. But I would certainly not want to be too prescriptive in the charter, telling them exactly when they have to meet. Just generally mentioning some of the issues of accessible locations, and as we have been structured, thank you, Chair Mack, you know, to have some evening or late afternoon meetings as in addition to these weekday mornings, which obviously limit a lot of people from attending.
Sure.
So We need some data. is
Yeah,
what I'm
and to
saying.
clarify, I believe, under this item, some of the recommendations cannot be enacted without charter change, but some of them can be. I think it's that this one's a little bit of a mixed one.
Well, let's find out exactly what it currently says and how prescriptive.
We'll dig a little deeper onto that.
And I think just looking at the first sentence of this item, this number 2 item, I think it says that the section doesn't actually address requirements, but I think in practice they're sharing this is how it is playing out in practice. And then in the charter section, they address powers of and term limits of the Board of Police Commissioners. I think similar to Commissioner Field, I think we do need more data. I'm curious to see kind of what is the general recommended structure for general commissions. What are most commissions doing? Is there a standardized recommendation that we can find anywhere?
It's scattershot with different commissions having different representations being and I believe we're going to get some recommendations on commission structure. In general, and some streamlining, but different commissions, for example, this commission had a structure where there were different sets of appointees, and it's just all the commissions are different.
Yeah, I think for that piece, then my feedback is if we can incorporate that. I know in other pieces of the staff report there is here are some examples in different XYZ. I think if we can just include that in this section really briefly so that we can just have a understanding of...
Sorry, that happens in this room.
So that we can have an understanding of just comparison. Commissioner Thomas?
Yeah, as someone who has gone to several of these commission meetings, what they're really trying to get at is the fact that people come there, and you have to understand why people come to commission meetings. They come to commission meetings when their loved one has been murdered, and there seems to be no accountability. And so you have mothers and fathers and cousins and brothers of people who have been killed by the police giving public comment, and they get cut off. And there's this arbitrary time frame, which is 45 minutes, and it's just done. And the reality is that I'm of the opinion that anyone who wants to speak, who treks their way down to the downtown LA, pays $20 or more for parking, which is something that I want to talk about because one of our presenters had to pay $120. We'll talk about that later.
We offered parking for all of them.
At USC?
Oh.
It was $120 she had to pay. And so I think she should be reimbursed for that, but we can talk about that later.
We can talk about that.
Okay, thank you. So it's important to know that these are not just, it's not like city council, right? Where people, these are real people who have had real losses, who are going to appeal to the commission, hoping that the commission would be humane and hold officers accountable for killing their loved one. I was in a meeting when that actually did happen, when the commission did say that the 2 kill shots of the young man who was killed, Gregorio Mack, who was killed in the Baldwin Hills Mall, barrage of bullets, could have killed anybody shopping at the mall. I was there when the police commission said that the kill shots, the last 2 shots, were out of policy. I was also present in the meeting when the chief of police said that the commission, they're not police. They've never been police officers. They're not in a position to even analyze policing. And that he was not going to recommend the firing of those police officers. And the tribunal was not going to recommend the firing of those police officers. And then he followed it up with, and if the tribunal did, and they claim that the police chief doesn't have power to fire police officers. He said, if the tribunal does recommend their firing, I'm going to be their chief witness. Who do you think they're going to listen to? Me or you? This is what is happening at the police commission. This is why people are coming out and speaking out. The protocol for the police commission was set by a lawsuit that Dr. Melina Abdullah filed. She was arrested. And what she asked for when she won that case was to set the protocol for how community comes to give public comment. Basically saying that if somebody is up talking, you just can't walk up and grab them and arrest them, which is what they've been doing, which is what they did to her. That you at least have to give them a warning. There's a particular protocol. And so I'm just saying that, Madam Chair and Commissioner Field, just so that you can understand that these people are harming folks who are already harmed, already traumatized, just coming there to share what has happened to their loved one. You will also note, and then I'm done, but I want to give you the full context as someone who has been in the room and witnessed this. There was a woman who was found dead. They said that she killed herself. I think Waukesha, they just passed a bill on her behalf. And the bill says that you have to notify the family. They never notified her family that she had been killed.
Oh my gosh, turn the lights off.
I can still see y'all. Can y'all see me?
We can hear you.
So Waukesha's bill was just passed maybe a week or so ago, saying that the police have to notify the families when someone dies in their custody. They never notified her family. Now, if you follow the story of Waukesha's aunt, there was missing video. The police chief said that there was no missing video. The LA Times reported that there was.
Let there be light.
Let there be light. So, Waukesha's aunt, on the last day that the chief of police was in office, she gave public comment. And when she finished, as they tried to wrestle her away, she happened to have had Waukesha's ashes with her. She asked the chief, she said, "You lied. We want to see the last 15 to 20 minutes of the video. You lied." Then she took the ashes and she threw them in his face. I loved it. It was classic. It was classic. And then she said, "Waukesha is with you wherever you go." And I say that to say, this is the commission that we're talking about. These are the people who show no compassion. And in this particular case, in Gregorio Max's case, they did. They said the kill shots, but nothing happened. And so it's not only important that we expand the amount of time that people make public comment, that we treat them with dignity and respect, that we understand that these are folks who are traumatized, and that we handle them that way. We ought to be trauma-informed. We should give trauma-informed services. The city should have a trauma-informed approach, because most of the people who live in Los Angeles are traumatized just by the fact that they're living in Los Angeles. And so it's very important that when we look at the police commission, that we look at who sits on the police commission. There's not one activist on the police commission. It's a bunch of rich folk, executives, who have no willingness whatsoever to do what's right by the people.
I think that's
For last point, for black people in terms of diversity, because they mentioned diversity. For black people who sit on the commission, it's a revolving door. They can't keep black folks. Because black folks gonna go along to get along for a while, typically, if they have a soul. But at some point, they're gonna say, I can't do this any longer. And so they've never been able to keep black people, except Errol Southers. And we know why they were able to keep him. Because he's Homeland Security, you know. So this is the issue. And we can solve this issue by simply saying, we need real people from the community. Folks that the community want. We should have activists. We should have people who know policing. We should have people who know public policy. We should have business people. We should have the entire gambit sitting on that police commission. Not just folks who are developers, who want to criminalize homelessness, houselessness, so that you can build your $10,000 a month apartments. So that's really that's the full kind of context of what they're really trying to address. They're trying to address scathing treatment. And I think they've done a good job at doing that.
And then I was just gonna say, perfect segue into number 3. I'm gonna pass it over to staff to touch on that part. But you're right on point.
Number 3 is expand commissioners' diversity demographics. So a proposed solution to Charter Section 571 is that the members of the Board of Police Commissioners should reflect the city's diversity. The collective group Catalyst California, Ground Game LA, LA Forward Institute, and the League of Women Voters of Greater Los Angeles proposed the language be similar to what is used for the City of Los Angeles Independent Redistricting Commission and the City Charter Reform Commission that lists diversity demographics to be considered as racial, ethnic, sex, gender, sexual orientation, age, income, profession, and geographic diversity. The composition of the commission shall include people who have been impacted, for example, a person directly harmed or who has lost a loved one by police violence, and experts in civil rights and police misconduct litigation. Further, they propose including language stating a prior arrest or conviction will not disqualify an individual from serving on the Board of Police Commissioners.
Commissioner Field?
Yes, here's some things I'd like the staff to look into. I support this kind of language. It's totally logical. I also, and this is linked to another item, I forget which number on our list, but it's part of this whole discussion. I would like to have, and I don't know what information, but I think the commission, first of all, needs to be bigger. I think it should be 7. I think there should be 4 mayor appointees, 1 council president, 1 council pro tem, and 1 impacted person who applies and selected by, for example, the Ethics Commission. So maybe the staff could look into whether the Ethics Commission is a good place to make an unbiased judgment on the applications and who might serve as someone representing the communities that have been harmed directly by some police action. I also want to say that in terms of this critical commission, and we have a vacancy on that commission right now. I don't know how long it's taking the mayor to fill it, but we've all remembered the length of time it took the mayor to give us 4 appointments. I think we need language in the charter that if the appointing authority doesn't act, let's say within 90 days of a vacancy, that appointing authority, is removed from that person, that position and goes to, again, for example, the Ethics Commission, or maybe, I don't know. I mean, the quality of these commissions is who the mayor is and who they want to put on them. And definitely can't be only the mayor. I like the idea of the impacted person by application, so it's a really open public process. And in my mind, the Ethics Commission is kind of a good, pretty, in general, it's a commission that is designed to make sure we're all ethical and therefore could potentially make a good, less biased decision. I should point out that the current commission, I think Commissioner Thomas makes a point, there, as far as I can tell, there is no currently an African-American black member. The president is, however, has a history of community activism. Teresa Sanchez Gordon attended the People's College of Law, along with a lot of our very eminent activist leaders in LA, and she has been a judge and has a pretty good history. But anyway, I don't know that much about the other commissioners, but I do not believe there is currently an African American. And again, I think that vacancy has been sitting there for a little bit, and it would be good if the charter had some consequences for a mayor or a council president pro tem, another interesting example in our case, who doesn't do the job. Anyway, I would like staff research into some of those concepts and their feasibility. Thank you.
Commissioner Thomas, any comments?
My only comment is that the reason that there's a vacancy is that Errol Southers was the mayor did try to reappoint him. But black folks are not interested in that position. Anybody in their right mind who's black would not be, especially if they're going to be forced to go with the status quo. And so it's going to be hard for her to find someone because she's got to find somebody who is, she's got to find a black person who is pro-police. Good luck with that. In Los Angeles, unless you are a police, unless you are, that's a very, very difficult job. And so I definitely think that there should be some consequences, but I don't even know if the mayor should even be responsible for choosing the people in the police commission. I kind of think it should be the people. Because I just don't think that elected officials have proven themselves to be the kinds of people who are willing to really make transformative change, especially if it means they may not be reelected. And so I think when it comes to policing, we need to take this out of their hands. We need to figure out how to take this out of their hands. Because I'm not even sure whether or not elected officials with their pro-police agenda, whether it's really their ideology or it's what they feel like they're forced to be. It's who they are forced to be. I don't know. But I agree with you 100%. But I just think that maybe they shouldn't be the ones doing this, because at the end of the day, it will be private citizens who are responsible, who will be harmed by policing, and it should be private citizens who are making the decisions as to whether or not a police officer should be held accountable. That's just my view.
I think just echoing what my fellow commissioner said, I think I'm also interested in looking at language of diversifying kind of what is the process of getting, like, who and how folks are getting on the commission, and also the number of commissioners on this specific police commission. I think I have one question for staff clarification, if that's possible. I think I'm just thinking out, I'm seeing a lot of overlaps with government structure, and I know there's a section where we talk about commission, and kind of, I think even this 90-day rule or something came up in our discussion around just like appointments of commission.
Yeah.
And so I think my clarification is, if we were to, like anything, if we were to move forth in that committee, and feel free to stop me if I'm not allowed to have this conversation, does that apply to all commissions within the city, including police commission?
It would, if it was a charter change, so we would ultimately come back, let's say, for example, this would apply to everything. The commission moves forward. If, let's say, there was another committee that moved forward changes to all commissions, we would have to come back with all those changes throughout the charter, including any commission that's in the charter, and say, you asked to have every commission, I don't think you'll do this, have every commission have this structure, exact structure, and we would go through and find all the places in the charter where that would be, and the commission could be like, yes to that one, yes to that one, yes, nope, yes, yes, nope, you know, you'll have the options to change. So that's another example where early votes will take place by this commission, but are not locking in until later when final charter language comes and says, you voted for this, here's all the impacts.
Yeah.
That now we know after doing all the research and working through the entire document and seeing where all those dominoes are and bringing that forward, and then the commission can make those choices.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I think I'm starting, I feel like we mentioned this as full commission, like we're gonna see a lot of overlaps. And so I think just flagging that this one in particular, I'm seeing some of the overlaps of government structure, and so staff can kind of just flag and kind of see then kind of how we talk about it in that committee versus this one, and then if we're gonna have to, you know, coincide.
And I just, if I may, I would add that there needs to be at least one anti-police person on the commission, and maybe one pro-police person on the commission. Instead of all of them being pro-police, but there should at least be one person who identifies as anti-police.
I think, to your point...
You want 3? Okay, 3!
Well, I think what I'm hearing from all three is that in subsequent reports to look at other models across the country of police commissions especially, and see what best practices are there, or another example.
You think there are any?
I don't know.
They're not. They're not.
I think cities are you know, great incubators of ideas. Not always, you know, some are making good change. Some are saying, some will have absolutely told us, we did this, don't do it. Like this is something we need to fix later. So like we made this change. We're not asking you to make this change. So yeah, it's at least worth looking at, I think.
Yes.
Yeah.
At least one anti-police person.
Save that for
when we make the recommendation.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you so much.
Okay. Moving on. What's number 4?
Okay, number 4 is new requirements for the Inspector General audits. So the Inspector General has the authority to audit, investigate, and oversee the police department's handling of complaints of misconduct. Section 573 addresses the Inspector General, specifically its access to the police department's information and its ability to conduct investigations related to the LAPD. Catalyst California, Ground Game LA, LA Forward Institute, and the League of Women Voters of Greater Los Angeles proposed there be a requirement for the Inspector General to annually conduct an audit of all stops and uses of force that includes data disaggregated by race and geography to improve overall transparency and limit racial profiling and excessive use of force. Alongside this, they propose requiring the Inspector General to conduct an annual audit of the Board of Rights proceedings to assess whether findings align with hearings records and quarterly reports on the outcomes of the Board of Rights proceedings. And then we also gave an example of Berkeley, California. Their city council, when they voted in February of 2021 about the pretextual stops, it was a packet of police reform efforts, and one of them was addressing the Berkeley Police Department's existing early warning system to identify officers potentially making problematic stops by tracking the racial breakdown of those stops more closely.
Commissioner Field?
Yeah, I'm interested in this potential reform. I just have a question. Could we get our staff, and I don't know if it can be done by Thursday, I mean, I'd like examples of what they currently audit. What does the Inspector General audit on behalf of the Police Commission? And therefore, you know, that would inform, I think, in my opinion, whether we're adding to a lengthy list, or they only have 3 things they audit. I'd like to know. I think this sounds like a legitimate topic for auditing and research. I just like to confirm that that is the kind of thing that the Inspector General does, because I really, to be honest, no clue what the Inspector General does. So hopefully we can get some more background. And also, even if I may, one more thing, just how long have we had an Inspector General for the police department? What's the history of it? Just a little more background if possible. Thank you.
Yes, and then I'm going to note that the Inspector General did come to our previous meeting, and as a committee, we have said that because you were absent, if you have any questions, happy to also kind of follow up with them. And so that request was made. I think I'm going to echo, yes, similar comments on my end. I would just like to see more clarity on what is it they do as an oversight entity. And so, are they already doing audit? Like, what are they doing as of right now? Because I think we're talking and looking at new requirements. What are the current requirements? I think that's helpful as we continue this conversation. Commissioner Thomas?
Yeah, I think that organizations like ACLU, they've been doing this, collecting data on pretextual stops for about a decade. And I think that I just don't trust these people. I'm sorry, I think they need to be in collaboration with community groups or, educational institutions that track and monitor this as well, or at least whatever their reports are should be compared to them, because there are folks that have been doing this since forever, and which is why we have the discussion about pretextual stops. The police department doesn't want to end pretextual stops. We had a chief who believed in the broken windows theory. If a window is broken, there must be some crime being committed someplace. I just got to find it. That was his mentality. That was his philosophy, which ended up being stop and frisk. And so there is a stop and frisk attitude in policing, and this issue of tracking racial demographics and is extremely important. And they always say the same thing. Guess who they stopping? Black folks. All of the data says the same thing. And so I'm not necessarily for another study. I want them to stop. And so I'd like for, as Commissioner Fields has said, what are you doing now with the data that you already have? What have you put in place? Because your data it definitely says that black folks are disproportionately being stopped and ticketed. That's all over the country. So what are you doing? What have you put in place to stop that?
I think I might just add on to a comment too, referring to when they had presented to us. The Inspector General did focus in, and honestly, in his remarks, said a lot that he wants to do more community work and wants to focus more on working with community groups. I'm just saying that kind of as context for commissioners who didn't hear it, or I know you were online, but I think just making that. I don't know if there's anything currently in what the Inspector General does that it says that, but I think I'm just curious of what that could be, and maybe that's a follow-up question that I think we didn't get a lot of clarity on as well. Moving on to the next one.
Okay, so the next one is protect protests. So Catalyst California, Ground Game LA, LA Forward Institute, and the League of Women Voters of Greater Los Angeles proposed to include a provision in subsection 574A to explicitly recognize and protect protests and uncouple its association with riots, disturbances, and breaches of the peace.
Commissioner Field?
Thank you. I hope the staff will indulge me. I want to propose language, and then I want to get the staff to check on it. I know, but still, I want to get work done. I don't want to just keep blathering, excuse me. I don't mean you, Commissioner Thomas, I mean myself. I want to get to the language that we may or may not ever take to the full commission. What's in front of us here, suppress all riots, and I would like to add the word violent disturbances which threaten life or property and breaches of the peace, and to that end, and so forth and so on, the rest of the paragraph. And then I think we would add, based on number 5 and also number, I guess it's 6, peaceful protest is a form of freedom of speech guaranteed by the First Amendment of the United States Constitution and shall be protected by the Los Angeles Police Department. Also, freedom of the press is guaranteed by the First Amendment of the United States Constitution and must be protected by the LA Police Department. Now, I don't know if those are strong enough to deal with the treatment of some of the journalists and peaceful protesters in our long history, but I think at least I'd like the staff to research any impact, implication, problem by adding those sentences regarding these 2 essential First Amendment rights. And again, it'd be good because then we can hear from some of the advocates who may say that's still not strong enough, or you have to be more specific how journalists are treated, or, and then we can talk. I hope, I haven't seen anything in here. I really want to talk about the weapons the police are allowed to use. I'm not sure where that fits in, but I will perhaps find a place.
I think in the suppression of riots, in the suppression of riots and disturbances of the peace, I think there could be. I think there could be language that says that certain weaponry should not be allowed for these minor infractions. And if you add violent, then I think it's a little bit different. Yeah.
Yeah, well, and if I may, thank you, Commissioner Thomas, because that's an important clarification. I firmly believe that peaceful protest must not be met by law enforcement violence. And likewise, journalists gathering their stories must not be met. And actually, if this is the section, I want to propose, again, for staff to research,
I'll just, if I can, I just want to gauge your expectations. So when you're proposing language, we're not going to be researching until, delving too deep until things have been motion, seconded, and voted on to approve for further research.
Okay, I just
definitely keep these. We're taking note and we're listening.
You're
and
writing
it's
them
kind of
down.
guiding our kind of thought process, as you know. But we're not going to follow up with each of these just because we're already following up with things that have been approved by other committees in the commission, and that takes a lot of time.
Fair enough, and I appreciate the clarification. I think I'm using that language because we can't vote tonight or have told we shouldn't vote on anything specific, and I don't want to either. I think, all of us maybe need a little more information, but yes, I understand it's not going to happen for Thursday, and it may not happen till the new year and so on. I just want someone writing down my suggestions because my scribbles are not very readable. But if I may, building on Commissioner Thomas' comment, I would like in our charter that no military weaponry can be used at any time by the LAPD or any other department. I don't know, and maybe some people in this room do know, what the LAPD's history is. I don't know, maybe there's already something either in the charter or in the, the municipal code, but I don't want to see tanks used by LAPD or high-power weapons or whatever it would be. If it's military, it doesn't belong in our city, used by our police. It's bad enough if the National Guard come in with all that. But, so I don't know if it is this section that, Commissioner Thomas was saying, linked to, suppression of violence and riots. I'd like us to have that as a charter proposal. And again, if anybody happens to know already whether that's currently existing, whether our LAPD actually is purchasing, whether it's surplus or whatever kind of.
They are.
They are.
They are.
Okay.
I think most big cities are right now.
Okay, well, I think we should not allow.
That's what they do with the diversity training money. They purchase weaponry.
Okay, well, I'm just bringing it as something I'd like, eventually, when we are voting as a committee, I would like that to be.
And I'm glad it's coming from you.
I told you repeatedly, Pastor James, we're not that different on the issues.
I'm glad it's coming from you. But I will, it's very, very important. And I think, as somebody who has been to quite a few protests, they do what they want. They do what they want. If they decide to beat people, they beat people. If they decide rubber bullets are necessary, they use rubber bullets. And what often doesn't get talked about, like at one of the protests against ICE that the clergy did, there was a kid who was like 12 years old who was out there, and I'm like, what are you doing? He was like, look at what they did to me. So he pulled up his shirt, and they had shot him with rubber bullets. A kid. And so I think protests, I know Commissioner Fields says peaceful protests, but a protest is peaceful. All protests are peaceful. They are an exercise of our constitutional right. When we say, we know, and I know what you mean, Commissioner Fields, when you say peaceful protests, but the police act as if they don't. Because what they consider a peaceful protest is people complying with whatever they tell them to do and saying whatever they say in the way that they want them to. And so when that's not happening, it's declared no longer a peaceful protest. And now they have to remove people, whether they use, they say they use less than lethal force. No, it's not less than lethal force. It's not less than lethal. Maybe the force didn't kill him, but it's not less than lethal. And so, I think finding a way of saying that you should not, people don't bring guns, well, unless they're Republicans, and then they can shoot people with guns at protests and then nothing happens, right? They can kill people with guns and then nothing happens. The people who protest in Los Angeles are not folks who are carrying weapons meaning to do anybody harm. That is the reason they're protesting. Even Martin Luther King said that riots are the voice of the unheard. I'm slaughtering the quote, but it's because you're not listening that people protest. And so, I think we have to make that distinction that any protest is constitutional. And we can't allow them to define what that means. Yes.
As being boisterous.
Right. Right. That's what they do. This is an unlawful assembly. And the only thing that people are doing is shouting down. They're chanting. And I think truth is probably the greatest weapon with regards to policing and the refusal to bow down to the lies. And so I think, we have to figure out a way to get this. My point is we got to figure out a way to get this in here because we got to protect We have to protect protesters because they are our last line of defense. And I'll never forget during the George Floyd protest when we did a memorial. It was all of the clergy, and we had caravans going from like 5 different areas of the city. We brought caskets down, we had hearse, the whole 9 yards. Well, while we were setting up to do that, about 100 riot police showed up. And they were about to arrest us. And we got on the mic, Pastor Q, as a matter of fact, got on the mic and said, we need our white clergy to come around here and use your white privilege to stop these police officers from arresting us. And all of the white clergy did exactly that. Those police officers left, and we shut down that intersection for 4 hours. This is what's going on, y'all. We thank God for our white colleagues and comrades who support the freedom work. But it is race-based. People of color are treated differently when they protest. They are treated differently. And so that's just important. I don't know, Madam Chair, how we can word that.
I'm gonna have staff just make sure that we have recorded all the notes for that. I have personally no additional comments on this piece, but I think this is a continuation with number 6, and so I'm gonna have staff read out that section and continue conversation there.
Okay, so number 6 is ensure First Amendment right protections. Charter Section 574 discusses the powers and duties of the chiefs of police. The collective group that we heard from on December 11th, Catalyst California, Ground Game LA, LA Forward Institute, and the League of Women Voters of Greater Los Angeles proposes to add First Amendment right protections to the section. To ensure these rights are protected. They propose a protection of all 5 freedoms within the First Amendment. However, they highlight the freedom of press. They specifically propose the powers and duties of the police chief should include a provision honoring First Amendment rights and the public's and journalists' rights to document activities.
I already said my piece on this.
I think no additional comments on this section, but I think please record everything else that was said prior. I think we're good to move forward. Commissioner Thomas, do you have any final remarks on this one?
I was just going to mention a cell phone in the hands of a citizen is press too, because most of the news that we're getting today is not coming from mainstream media. It's coming from independent sources. It's coming from, we know what happened with George Floyd because that teenager videotaped it. Was that any less news than if it had been a reporter there? And so I think we need language that suggests that anyone who is surveilling misconduct could be considered press and have these rights.
I see staff is writing that down. Going to move forward with number 7.
Okay, so number 7 is improve public record disclosure. A proposed recommendation to Charter Section 574 is for an additional duty for the Chief of Police to ensure law enforcement records are made publicly available to the maximum extent allowed under California state law, and in the instance of non-disclosure in response to a public record request, the burden of proof shall be on the Chief of Police to establish why the record in question should not be disclosed.
Commissioner Field?
Thank you. And again, I know we're not going to get to this tonight. For the future, whenever it may be, I'm curious. I don't think I fully understand what kind of records. I don't know if this is about, the officers accused of misbehavior, misconduct. I'm not sure what kind of information is being discussed here. And I'm going to admit that I do think it's important, and the concept I get, but I think individuals whether they are police or firefighters or teachers or pastors. I think the privacy rights of individuals have to have some balance. And I understand that when people are serving in a public situation, such as police, you know, their behavior is going to be scrutinized more than most of us. But I think I will want more information. What exactly is it that people are saying is not being released in terms of records?
I know that there is a reluctance to release, and I think what they're getting at is that there's a reluctance to release what should be released. And so a lot of times the police will simply not, they don't release bodies, like, you know, so there is a lot that, you know, when people file a public records request, it's very specific. And the agency has a responsibility to release those records. What the police tend to do is not. And so if you don't get a lawyer and you're not filing a lawsuit, you may not ever get those records. But that is your right as a citizen to, it's through the Freedom of Information Act. You know, you can't, anyone could request information from any of us, and we would have to comply. And so why is it that the police feel that they don't have to? And I think that's what this is getting at.
I think just echoing what are the current requirements. I think, again, similar with the previous items that we touched on, it's a continuous asking, like, what is current standing? So that we can make more informed decisions going forward around all of this. Gonna move forward with number 8.
So number 8 is to require the LAPD to pay legal settlements out of their own budget and not the general fund. So currently the city of LA pays liability settlements out of the general fund, which means taxpayers' funds are paying for harm done by the work of any city department, including the police department. Alongside liability settlements, the general fund pays for key services and maintenance throughout the city, including funding support for youth, parks, and etc. So they are recommending that the police, but in there we mentioned that the city controller Kenneth Mejia, when he presented on the 3rd, he was saying a potential for all departments to pay a portion, but this one is focusing on LAPD, so I guess an alternative could be that it's for all departments as well, but this main one that's coming from LA Ford Institute is LAPD.
And I think that's more than appropriate, because they already have the police association that provides them legal, they raise money for them. And so why should we as taxpayers, I mean, you know, why are we paying for people to kill us unjustifiably? You know, that's what this is really about. Or to beat us up unjustifiably. If you are having to pay out, it's because you're losing. You're not exonerated, right? So, and I also think that we need to know the names of every officer who is responsible for this payout. And I think they should be on a registry. There should be some way to identify them. We shouldn't keep promoting people who are a liability to the city.
I'm gonna go, Commissioner Field.
Yeah, you know, I find this a really intriguing concept. And also, thank you, Brianna, for kind of reminding us that the controller mentioned, of course, LAPD is the biggest, but there are probably liability settlements from Park and Recs and, a bunch of other departments, although nothing, of course, to the extent of the police department. I would be interested in, I'd like the whole picture, not just police department liability, which we know is humongous, but some of the other departments, or just so we have a sense whether this should be for all departments and what that would mean in terms of the big picture of the budget. And when I first read this thing about Minneapolis, I thought, what a cool idea, but I'm going to tell you, I'm going to do the devil's advocate here because I guarantee you the answer will be it will destroy recruitment. That if they have to pay for their own liability above and beyond some minimal amount, they'll never come work for this city.
Good.
I know. I heard you say you're an abolitionist, you and Professor Abdullah, and I'm sure others. But anyway, I just, I'd like to see this not just about police, but just curious what other departments are having these settlements. I don't know how public this stuff is. I know it's probably closed session for the council, and then I guess we, the public, tend to hear just, they approved, $20 million because the family is bereaved of a family member. But anyway, yeah, I'm interested in more information. Thank you.
I just have one quick question, and I think it's more of a clarity for my understanding of what we're working with, but really I think my question is there currently a directive of why City of LA currently pays out the settlements from our general fund? I think I'm just trying to understand, this is how it is. Is there a reason why we're doing it this way? Is it written somewhere? Is there a directive somewhere? And I think that will inform us, kind of.
And I do want to address Commissioner Field's concern, and it's valid, and I understand that. But I think that people who go to policing for the right reasons, see, what we have currently is that we have people who are going into policing for the wrong reasons. They don't police the neighborhoods that they're in, that they live in. They, come from someplace else. Many of them. A lot of them from Simi Valley, a lot of them from, the outskirts, and they don't know what it's like to be in an urban community, and they're afraid of the urban community. As a matter of fact, I think his name is Dr. Green. I think it was Deputy Chief Green. He was the first police officer that was honest, who said, well, when I started living in Simi Valley, and I started working in South LA, I was afraid. The first police officer I ever heard say that. And so I can appreciate that. But if you're so afraid that you mistreat people, then maybe you shouldn't be in their communities. And so, as someone who is often asked to recruit people into policing, it's a difficult task because the culture is one that doesn't support people who are willing there to serve the community. And that's why all of the wonderful cops that you will find they're all working in the community. What is it? The community, whatever. Yeah. They don't even let them go out, and they're confined. They're the ones that you see in public relations. They're the ones that you see talking to communities, because these are police officers who are there for the right reasons. They're there to support the community, to actually serve the community, but yet they're relegated to a desk. They're not relegated to the front line, where the quote-unquote action is. And that's a quote from police officers. Oh, I want to go and work in South LA because that's where the action is. This is the mentality. No, that's where people live. That's where people are struggling. That's not where the action is. And so I think we have a plethora of doctors, and they all have to have malpractice insurance. We have lawyers, we have pastors who have to pay for insurance. We got to pay for insurance. If you give bad advice and somebody sues you, oh, absolutely. Yeah, they do. They've been paying a whole lot of lawsuits. Boards of directors. So there's no one, I mean, people don't pay your insurance for you based upon your misconduct. You know, so, I mean, again, if they don't want to be police because they have to pay insurance, what that says is that you are one who can abide police misconduct, and you should not be on the force anyway. But I promise you, as soon as they have to pay, they're going to straighten up. It's not going to be the thing again to hit some kid who is a person of color in a low-income community because he quote-unquote disrespected you, if it costs you something. And so they can say all day long that it's going to lead to attrition, whatever they want to say. At the end of the day, if you are committing misconduct, you need to pay for your misconduct like all the rest of us. And you still have your police association that's going to raise money for you. So it should not be handled by the city at all.
All right, we're going to move on to number 9.
Number 9 is the Board of Rights improvements or elimination. So the Board of Rights is tasked with hearing and deciding upon matters which are specifically drawn. During the court proceedings, the department has the burden of proof for each charge by providing strong evidence. The current Board of Rights is a 3-person civilian panel that serves as an internal court within the LAPD that decides how officers accused of serious misconduct are disciplined. However, LA4 discussed in their letter that it is well documented that the process frequently results in penalties that are too lenient on problematic officers. Discipline prescribed by the department's own leadership gets reduced or overturned or dismissed altogether, even when misconduct is clearly substantiated. Further, they discussed a report in 2022 from the LAPD Inspector General finding that most officers found to have wrongfully opened fire on people in recent years avoided serious punishment or received no discipline at all. So based on this, LA Forward proposes to take seriously any reforms to the Board of Police up to and including its elimination to ensure that discipline is fairly administered and that the discipline has a real impact on the LAPD officer behavior.
Going to start with Commissioner Field.
Thank you. This is really important stuff because if I remember right, when that board, or whatever it's called, Board of Rights, when it had some police representation, it actually cracked down more than this 100% civilian. And if I remember right, we did something. I don't know if it must have been a charter thing that we voted on, and we made it all civilian. And then in the subsequent years, it's been clear that they are more lenient. They go easier on the officers who come before them accused of a variety of actions. So I absolutely want to make some changes here, again, if we get to that point. And, you know, I'm very much interested in Councilman McCosker's project. I think he was trying to do something about this board, and it got vetoed. And I'd like to see real serious change. And I have a question again, maybe the staff can find out. What's the history of why this is separate from the police commission? Was there a time when the commission itself reviewed these cases? I just don't know why there's 2 different boards. Maybe the police commission should serve this function as well as all its other oversight. But again, we need, in my opinion, based on, again, the history as I recall and understand it, there have to be some police on there because they tend to crack down harder than the civilians. I'm pretty sure that's what's happened as however many years we've had this all civilian Board of Rights. So, just my questions and comments.
Comments from Commissioner Thomas?
I think you raise an important point. I think that people, I mean, it's just like, you know, from a sociological perspective, you know, black folks are harsher on black folks than others are. And so that's a very, very important point to make. We currently have a police commission who is a rubber stamp for the chief. And we now have this Board of Rights who is a rubber stamp for the chief. He will argue that he has no influence with him, that he has no power to fire. It's not true from his own mouth. And I do think that what is key to all of this is the people. How are these people being selected? And maybe, you know, well, not maybe, I just think that the community needs to have some input into who is going to litigate or judge these matters. You know, I don't know, you know, I just don't think you could, it just, ultimately, an elected official chooses the police commission, an elected official chooses this Board of Rights, correct?
I'm looking it up right now.
I think they do. I think they do. So now, I'm running for office. And while I will say I'm not accepting police money, because they all want, that's a new thing now. Nobody wants police money. But that doesn't mean I don't lean towards police. And so I don't think that I just don't think that they should be, to be truthful, if with all of the reforms that are being recommended, if these stick, we would have done transformative work for the city of Los Angeles.
Big if.
Yeah, it's a big if, but I believe in miracles and fighting too. So, so that's interesting. So I think we should look at what was happening beforehand, because I don't know if this was after the consent decree that they came up with this tribunal, with this.
I'm just finding the section on composition of Board of Rights right now. There's no legislative history behind it, so that's something we can look into per Commissioner Field comment earlier. Yeah.
Okay. Yes, you want.
Sorry, it's referencing the grant game letter that was sent to the commission a little while back. It's just, there's a historical grant game.
Yeah, I was gonna point at some of the materials that were sent to us.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
I think also, in addition, I think I wanna.
This is what the community does for us. This is why we need them.
I wanna also highlight what our two other commissioners have said. I think I wanna honestly just wanna see more. I want a little bit more of context of kind of what has happened in the last few years, and so I think Commissioner Field, you mentioned it. I believe it's Charter Amendment C was the name. It is also referred in Councilmember McCusker's letter that was sent to us, and so taking a closer look, I think there was a couple of things that City Council was trying to do last year in terms of motion, and so yeah, please include that, or take note to include that in here as well. I think it's important in this piece, and also just agreeing that I also have questions on what is the relationship and interaction between Board of Rights and Police Commission too, generally. Any other comments?
Because the Board of Rights is not obligated to do. They're not obligated to accept the recommendation of the police commission or the chief of police.
They're all out there. I can't even figure out who's on it.
It's the Board of Rights shall be composed of 2 officers of the rank of captain or above and an individual who is not a member of the department, the civilian member, except as provided in the second paragraph of the subsection below.
But are you sure that's current? Because there are currently 3 civilians, according to our document.
So civilians can apply, and then their applications go through a subcommittee of the Board of Police Commissioners, which then that subcommittee's recommendations gets referred to the full Board of Police Commissioners for
So the
selection.
commissioners select the Board of Rights, which does the disciplinary stuff. Again, I'm confused because this thing about that there's officers on it, our information says it's a 3-person civilian. Doesn't mean my understanding is this whole issue is partially because once it didn't include any current officers, as you were indicating, are harder on each other sometimes, that the rate of discipline dropped. The civilians were easier on the accused officers. So anyway, we need more information, I think.
That's a good note.
Yeah, I think I saw somewhere that at one point it was like 2 civilians versus 3. I think just, more clarity on what is current standing.
Yeah.
I think it's helpful. I think we're getting different information here.
Good.
Let's move forward. I believe we started to look at 10. And so, staff, if you can read that part out.
So 10 is to give the mayor and city council more direct power over LAPD, potentially equal to or greater than the police commission. So the Board of Police Commissioners is composed of 5 civilian members, 4 serving currently as the vice president is vacant. They are all appointed by the mayor. LA Forward discusses that while the board officially has authority over the police department's policy, it lacks the authority over employee discipline and any direct ability to ensure that policies are enforced and respected. So in response to this, LA Forward proposes that the Charter Commission consider whether the current system of the mayoral appointed police commission is sufficient to this important task of holding LAPD accountable, and what if not other structures of governance and oversight deserve consideration. More specifically, LA Forward proposes amending the charter to clarify the language within section 571 and ensure that the mayor and the council have clear power for some combination of hiring, firing, and setting policy, having co-equal power to the commission, if not more. And then Councilmember Hernandez, when she came on the 11th, she also discussed the same thing. She was saying that currently when the city council attempts to set policy, they are not directing LAPD, they are directing the Board of Police. The Board of Police Commissioners to consider directing LAPD, thus not guaranteeing consideration of the matter and not guaranteeing implementation. Under the charter, the city council has no power to require LAPD to provide clear answers or to adopt policies that would protect immigrant communities, and so they must rely solely on requesting the police commission to investigate. Due to this, she also proposed providing the city council and the mayor with the authority to set and enforce policy and procedures within the LAPD, or ultimately revising the role of the police commission.
Any comments from our commissioners?
I know when Chief Willie Williams was removed, it was city council working in conjunction with the mayor. And what it sounds like is that that's not necessarily happening today. And so, I think one of the ways that you get at that is what I think has been recommended in terms of having city council, either you can expand the number on the commission to include city council appointees. And that way, you might be able to get at that because, ultimately, and if you have a chief who has the mentality that this civilian board does not have the capacity to understand policing, it remains the same. And I think it needs to be clear who actually has authority over the chief of police. And we talk about policy, and the same thing that you hear, at universities, particularly in terms of you have a board of directors, and they are not responsible for the day-to-day. They are responsible for policy. But the problem with that is that oftentimes they don't understand the difference. And, in the case of the chief of police, I do not think that the chief of police believes, and I know Chief Moore did not believe that the commission was his boss. I don't think he believed that. I also don't believe that, and that being said, the mayor is his boss. And so as long as he is doing what the mayor desires, then he's fine, whether he's not doing even if he's not doing what the commission wants, even if he's not doing what city council wants. And so, I think there needs to be a clarification around who has authority over the chief. And I think that expanding the number of people on the police commission would be extremely helpful. It seems like there's more than 7, though.
What, the commission?
Police commissioners.
It's 5.
No, it's more than 5.
Probably 4.
Okay, but here.
No, but I'm saying it's more, there seems to be quite a few.
Maybe it's their staff? I'm just saying officially there are 5 appointed commissioners.
And 4.
There's a lot there. There are way more than 5. It looks more like city council.
Oh, I don't know.
When you go to the commission meetings. So
By the way,
I'm shocked that there's only 5.
Yeah. The latest is, as of just 10 days ago, the mayor has sent a notice to the council, subject to your confirmation. I have appointed Dr. Daniel Tabor to the Board of Police Commissioners and so forth. So I haven't heard of the council voting on it.
I know Dr. Daniel Tabor.
Okay.
He's going to do the right thing.
Oh, well, he's been nominated.
He's going to do, he's going to do the right thing. I think Dr. Tabor is going to do the right thing.
Any additional comments on this one? No. All right, let's move to the next one.
Okay, so the next one is defund the police.
That's smart. She did something smart.
So the next one is defund the police. The People's Budget discussed the data they have collected over the last 5 years from residents throughout the city of Los Angeles. They report there is a public desire for an increase in funding towards housing security, food security, economic advancement, mental health and wellness, community investment, etc., with a public desire for a decrease in police and policing, law enforcement and the city attorney's office, and parking enforcement. Because of this data, they propose divesting from policing and investing in housing, transportation, youth development, and etc.
Well, of course I have comments on defund the police.
Let's start with you.
No, go ahead. Defund the police is on the agenda. Oh my God, who'd have thought? So this is the thing. When the first conversations about defunding the police happened, even the Democratic Party, i.e. Barack Obama, said that it was a snappy slogan, but it was not public policy. In 2025, defunding is the driving force. It is the power behind the Trump administration. And what I find very interesting is, why is it that the Democratic Party did not see it as such? Could it be we have defunded, the Democratic Party, when they changed the welfare system, when Bill Clinton reformed welfare, that was defunding. Could it be that the police are a protected class for elected officials? And so that even when they are inefficient, ineffective, squandering the city's money, they still don't deserve to lose funding. And so what I appreciated about the presentation by People's Budget LA that the mayor has seen, that some of the city council folks have seen as well, I appreciated them surveying community and reporting back what it is the community has said, which is defund the police. It's not a bad, it's funny how in 2025, defund the police is not a bad word now. Donald Trump has redefined it. That People's Budget LA was very clear in terms of where people want their money spent. Not on policing. And I think in order, or it should be, in order to maintain a job in the city, you have to justify your job. They never have to justify their position. And the money that they get from this, they never have to. If you say that, if they're caught in some infraction and they're doing something that they shouldn't, the first thing that they say is that we need more training. You've been on the force 20 years and you still need training about how to deal with people. Again, in the book Breaking Rank, former police chief of San Diego and Seattle said that when the police demand money for training, they use the money to purchase more militarized weapons. If you have a gun, there's a tendency that you will use one. If you have militarized weapons, there is the tendency that you will use them. We have robotic dogs that New York didn't want, so they gave them to us. And we said we didn't want them, but we took them. And city council voted for these militarized dogs. Even with the opposition, these robotic dogs. I don't even know what they look like. But even with opposition from black city council members, and to me it's an easy fix. If white folks want militarized dogs, want robotic dogs in their neighborhoods, go ahead, fine. But we don't want them in ours. Because the police, who are human beings, who are supposed to be thinking people, kill us unjustifiably.
Well, I thought you were going to say you trust them more, and I was going to say, wait a minute, that can't be right.
The robots might be better but so when it comes to, it is very simple. And I'll give this example. Community came forward and demanded that police be removed from the Los Angeles Unified School District. The police were removed from the Los Angeles Unified School District. Now it's important to say why, because some of the time, so what the police had been doing is that they would be waiting at the door for the door to ring and for the bell to ring, and when the bell rang, everybody who was not in the actual building but running trying to get there, that we all have done, now they have an infraction. Their parents get a ticket. They have to report to court. This was happening over and over. And guess who it was happening to? Black and brown folk. So, community demanded that they be removed. This is how defunding works, and I want people to understand. What happened is the money, the budget that was for the police went to fund the Black Student Achievement Program. So for the first time in the history of LAUSD, Black students are the focus in terms of funding to remove the achievement gap. That's what happens with money that is taken from the police. The money that is taken from the police should be going to measures that in fact stop crime. That is poverty reduction. Poverty reduction. And so when we're talking about, when the conversation about defunding police comes up, the knee-jerk reaction should not be, oh, so we're gonna run around here without police. If we put measures in place, we're gonna get better policing. If they understand that you're gonna be responsible for your own infractions, then there's also the motivation for other police officers to tell on those who are committing infractions. And so there's a whole impact. But more importantly, we should be funding poverty reduction programs so that we don't have crime to begin with. There's a direct relationship. If you look at the crime grid and you look at the poverty grid, they're the exact same. Same thing is true for foster care. If you look at where children are taken, it's the same thing. It's the poverty grid, the crime grid, and the foster care grid are all identical. So what that means is that this is happening in low-income communities of color. And so just want to go on the record saying, for anybody that does not understand what defunding the police means, defunding the police has meant for LAUSD that we now have more students, because it's not just exclusively for Black students. We have more students graduating college ready than we ever had in the history of Los Angeles. That's what defunding the police, that's what this money does. It makes us a better society. And so I just wanted to, because there are bound to be, oh my God, defund the police is a scary thing, you know. But I just wanted to make sure that that was on the record.
I think kind of going off of that, Commissioner Thomas, I think when I first saw this, I think I just want to be mindful too, like yes, recognizing that this is in the police reform section of our staff report, but to me, and I think the way that People's Budget presented to us, like to me this is very much a budget conversation. We're having this conversation because, you know, if you look at our budget, which, you know, the controller presented to us, it's the number budget line in which our city funds are going to. And so I think that's why we're having this conversation. And I think I just want to note again, the reason why we're having this conversation around defund the police is because there's other programs that are clearly undersourced. And so I think, I don't know how we want to reflect this in the staff report, but I do believe that portions of this part, number 11, should be reflected in the budget process as well, because I think the presentation from People's Budget was great. They provided community-based recommendations and stuff kind of responses for what people are wanting from the ground. But I think it's also a bigger thing of public engagement and also listening and aligning what the public voice is in community. And so I think it's a yes and. It's kind of, there's overlapping in both, but I think I just want to raise that. For me, the presentation that People's Budget gave us was very much rooted in budget, in the city's budget.
Absolutely, and I would just add that they also talked about juxtaposing the people's budget, like continuing to collect the data in terms of what the people want, and then when it's time for the mayor to present her budget, that you look at both budgets, and that they should be considered, and so I think, or at least some consequence, as Commissioner Fields suggests, some consequence for not, if the people are saying that this is what they want, and then you just say, no, we're going to do what we've always done because that's what we do, there ought to be some consequence for that. So I don't know I don't know if they recommended what that would look like, but they did talk about having kind of this independent process.
Yeah, I believe that's
do the research. Yeah,
I believe that's in the budget section.
Okay.
I think it's number 7, but I think going back, if we're able to somehow like combine the two, because I think the conversation goes together. And I know right now in the staff report they're kind of separate, but I think for me, at least the way that I digested the presentation was that the narrative is together and should be talked about together.
Exactly, because it was the People's Budget LA, and they showed us nothing but numbers. They showed us numbers. So yeah, it would be great, and which is why I think that's one of the groups that should present to the entire commission, because I think it's such a controversial. It's been made to be so controversial. It's been so demonized that it's important for people to actually see what it actually means to defund the police. We know what it means every place else: layoffs, cuts. We know what defunding. The city is cutting jobs and defunding departments and doing a lot, but we can't use that language in policing. And that's a problem, because we're arguing that they don't have any problems, which is why I asked the Inspector General when we were in our last meeting. I'm like, just tell me, what do you think the problems with policing are? I mean, what do you think? What do you think? You ask me what are the problems at Cal State LA, or what are the problems with being a professor, I can tell you, I can rattle them off. Because I'm fighting against them. So, and so that would be helpful. That would be helpful, because other than that, it's as if it's business as usual. So I'm done. That's it.
And then any other additional comments from our commissioners? All right, we're gonna, I see Executive Director has a comment.
We have 2 more to go on this list, and then I think, we should take a brief recess if you want, and then we'll.
Okay, perfect. All right, let's continue with 12.
So number 12 is allow the Chief of Police to remove officers with repeated histories of harm. So according to Councilmember Hernandez, currently the Chief of Police does not have the authority to remove officers with long documented histories of harm. The current Board of Rights process makes it extremely difficult, and in some cases nearly impossible, to discipline or fire officers who repeatedly violate policy or endanger the public. She then continued, if we expect the chief to lead a modern, accountable department, then the chief must have the authority to remove officers who repeatedly harm the public and department employees. So she recommended allowing the chief of police to remove officers.
Commissioner Field?
I think this is this is obvious to me. And again, just for clarity, it's my understanding the way it works now, the chief might want to fire an officer who the chief believes merits that for whatever combination of reasons, and this 3-member civilian board can overturn the chief. And that's why the chief, I don't know if the chief talked to the council member, or I don't know, or she knows all this apparently, but That's why the chief does not currently have adequate authority. So anyway, I hope we pursue this.
And one, the chief is not telling the truth. He can fire people. He can direct that commit. You know, I don't know if y'all know 3-card Molly. I don't know if y'all ever heard of that. Like, it's something that, you know, it's a bait and switch. You know, when it's convenient, when I need the political, when it's politically expedient for me to, you're fired as a police officer, right? Because of what you did. It's a lot of public outrage. But you don't really want to fire him. But you have to respond to public outrage. And so you hand this over to this board of civilians, and the civilians say that no, they're not going to fire him. The chief told me himself, if he says that if I am the chief advocate for a police officer that is going up for firing, and who do you think they're going to believe? That says you have the authority. Maybe it's indirect, but you have the authority to fire these officers. You just don't want to. Now, he didn't make that remark. He made that remark to me in a community meeting. He didn't make it public that he said that. And so, I don't know how I feel about that. You know, just from the standpoint of, what does that mean for black officers? Because we do know that there was an incident of a black female officer who stopped an officer from brutalizing someone, and she was fired. She was fired. And she was an officer herself. And she tried, you know, and so I don't, there's too much racism and anti-blackness in this city for me to, you know. I mean, for all I know, the chief could just go around just firing all the black officers. You know, we've seen worse with Daryl Gates. But, so I don't know. I mean, it sounds good, but the history of this city, you know, I don't know. I don't know. So I'm you know, and I do know that when we would meet with the chief as the NAACP, he would have a group of black officers. And I'm like a room full of black officers, which is kind of interesting. But when we got the new Chief McDonald, he disbanded that group. So, you know, I don't know if he's got another group of black officers. You know, we met with him again, and there were some black officers there, but I just don't think, the corruption is from top to bottom. And so, you know, these are people, you know, as much as I don't like police officers and want them to be replaced with people who won't cause us to relive slave catching, as much as I would like to, you know, I also know that there are officers who took a job because they wanted to do the right thing. And I know that doing the right thing in policing is not rewarded. And so it could end up being a way of pushing people out who may have the best for the community in mind. I said that publicly. You know, as for all the people who have relatives and dads and, you know, who are in policing. But I think we have to create an environment where the folks involved in policing, if it's going to exist, are supported and encouraged to do the right thing. And I don't know if giving this kind of power to the chief, I think maybe the city council, you know,
Slow it down a lot.
you know, yeah, they could. But it doesn't happen now. So I'd rather it be slower and happen than not happen at all. And so maybe, you know, maybe that, and then that could also be a space where the community could come out and be heard, where they could advocate, you know, for the firing of the officer, where it could be chronicled, all of the things that this officer has been accused of. But I think that there should be some accountability, and I just don't know if chiefs of police are willing. I mean, we do know that happened in, what was it, Newark, where all the police officers were fired. All of them were fired, and they had to reapply. Well, when they reapplied, they were like, how'd you stay? How? You should have been fired a long time ago. Some of them could not qualify to be police any longer. And Newark is a model city now. You know, still got problems, but the environment has completely changed as a result of that, as a result of firing all the police and forcing them to have to reapply. And so there are models out here. And I just think that if you we have tough on crime, let's be tough on police, because they're committing crimes. And that's the thing that I don't understand. I don't understand, why is it misconduct when a police officer does it, but it's a crime if I do it? You know, if I just go out here and I'm beating on somebody for no reason whatsoever, that's an assault, that's a crime. But it's misconduct if a police officer does it. It's not adhering to police protocol or policy. It's out of policy. No, it's a crime. And I think it should be seen as such. I'm done.
Yeah, I think something I'm hearing from this conversation is, I mean, if it's possible, if we can double check. I know this part of number 12 is coming from remarks from Councilmember Hernandez, and so if we can fact check that or clarify with Councilmember Hernandez, I think that would be helpful. I think something I'm also hearing is like, what is the current removal process of personnel within this? And so if we can take note of that, that would be great, and then we can move on with number 13.
And decertification. If you get fired from the police force, you should not be able to go to Riverside and become a cop, or to go to USC and become a cop.
We need state law for that.
Right, we do. But I thought there was some. But at least we can develop a registry. Because one of the things that happened in Newark was nobody knew that these people had done all of this.
No record.
There was no record. There was no public record. And so,
No one vets anymore.
yeah. Obviously, I wouldn't be here if y'all had vetted. But anyway, no one, you know, and so there should be a public registry of police officers that have committed misconduct that you can just put in a database, that you can tap into there. In the same way, I mean, we have registries for sex offenders. We have all of these different registries. I just think it's serious enough for that to happen. And I think it also, if it's making you seriously look at your livelihood, you're going to think twice about beating or shooting the smart mouth kid. If they're even a smart mouth kid, but let's say they are, you're going to think twice about that. And I think that that's what needs to happen. And I guess you could find out if something like that already exists. Is there a database?
All right, on to number 13.
And number 13 is to mandate periodic data-driven reviews of LAPD deployment and equipment. This one also comes from Councilmember Hernandez. So she discusses during the fiscal year of 25 to 26, the budget hearings, her office discovered that LAPD's helicopter program, one of the largest and most expensive in the country, is still justified using research that is half a century old. The research they found predates body cameras, GPS, digital dispatch systems in half of the neighborhoods in Los Angeles. Further, during these hearings, the LAPD could not produce modern data demonstrating that these flights improve safety, reduce crime, or prevent harm. The only metric they provided was that for every 40 hours of flight time, the Air Support Division makes one arrest without specifying if these arrests resulted in charges, convictions, or improvement in public safety. So in response to this, Councilmember Hernandez proposed amending the charter to require the LAPD to periodically provide updated data-driven decisions about how LAPD deploys resources, uses equipment, or structures entire divisions of the department to ensure the safety of both officers and the public.
Commissioner Field?
Yeah, no, I just want to say this to me sounds very logical, and I'd like, in sort of support of Commissioner Mack's point, let's go back to the council member and ask if she has language proposals on this particular item. And I might mention that I recently watched some of the police commission, and this topic about the helicopters came up, and they were given their report, you know, by one of the staff, and they were very happy with it. Whether they knew it was out of date information, I don't know, but yeah, I think we should get more, just some concrete language proposals from her on this issue. Thank you.
What I recall when Chief Willie Williams was the chief of police, that he stopped city council from using the helicopters. Because if I'm remembering correctly, city council, and I'm sure if it's city council, it was probably the mayor as well, was using the helicopters to transport themselves to the various events. And he said he did not believe that the police helicopter should be used that way. Now, I could name the folks who said it because I was in the room, but I will not name them. So, with him doing that, ultimately, he was removed. And so, again, we need some clarification. We need some clarification. Because maybe, I don't know, maybe, I don't know, you know, would the use of, to me, city council persons and mayors using helicopters would probably be more efficient in terms of their ability to engage with community than the way that it currently happens, because certainly the police use of helicopters is not doing anything. It's not stopping any crime, you know. So maybe that, I don't know, maybe that's something that needs to be considered, you know, especially if it means that it's going to increase the amount of engagement that they do within their communities.
Yeah, I think overall, I think like initial thoughts as I'm reading all of this is like, this is the same conversation of auditing. And maybe this is something, I think once we get more information on what the Inspector General does or whoever is auditing LAPD budget, I think that's part of the conversation. I see in our report, it also says Controller's Office. So I think just noting that. That said, we're gonna take a quick recess. Right now it's 7:12. We're gonna come back at 7:17. And
Carry on. Please tune in. All right, thank you.
all right, we're gonna take a recess. Chair of this committee is present. Commissioner Thomas?
Yes.
just noting for the meeting minutes that Commissioner Field had to leave. We're going to continue on with the rest of the staff report. I'm going to pass it over to staff to continue on with the rest of the sections.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So let's see, let's go back. Let's kind of start at the beginning and just talk about, again, who staff consulted on these various topics. And, we've got a couple slides here that where we pulled all these recommendations. And again, so much appreciation for the departments, the city leaders, the community groups, and others who participated in contributing to this document. This is as much their document as it is ours. So we are going to get back into the beginning and just jump to budget process. And I'm going to pass this over to my colleague, Michael.
Good evening, Commissioners. I'm Michael Shilstone. I'm a policy consultant working with the Charter Reform staff, helping them do research and put together staff reports like the one before you tonight. So to start off on budget process, stakeholder input on budget-related charter reforms have generally been focused on ways to increase transparency, oversight, and public participation. The primary idea that multiple stakeholders have raised is shifting to a multi-year budget cycle rather than the current annual budget cycle in order to address the conditions that have contributed to our current fiscal crisis. And our report includes 7 reform options for the city's budget process. So as mentioned, the feature reform, to start us off here, that many groups have commented on is enshrining in the charter a 2-year budget process for the city. Stakeholders claim that a 2-year budget would create time for and elevate goal setting and performance evaluation as part of the budget process, enable a separate dedicated process for capital infrastructure planning, better facilitate public participation, and encourage longer-term fiscal planning. Typically, cities that use biennial budgets adopt year 1 as a fully binding operating budget and treat year 2 as a detailed forecast that is updated during the next budget cycle to reflect revised revenues, departmental needs, and policy priorities. Cities still conduct annual updates and mid-cycle adjustments to account for changing economic conditions, ensuring that while planning is biennial, oversight and refinement remain continuous. The CAO and controller both provided options for what this process might look like in LA, which we included as attachment B at the end of the staff report. The next reform is to establish performance-based budgeting in the charter. Currently, the mayor sets budget priorities and policies in the earliest stage of the budgeting process. This reform would essentially change this phase to focus on setting more concrete performance metrics and outcomes and requiring spending to be oriented around achieving specific goals and implementing programs. Metrics and relative performance would then be tracked, reported, and evaluated on an ongoing basis to assess effectiveness and appropriateness of spending and departmental implementation. Third reform is to provide a longer time frame for the budget hearing process and to require departments to publicly present their budgets to City Council's Budget and Finance Committee prior to submission to the mayor. One item to note here is that in his presentation for moving to a 2-year budget, LA City Controller Kenneth Mejia suggests extending the budget publication and hearing process by a month, so moving the mayor's presentation of the budget from April 20th up to March 20th. And then finally on this slide is a reform to require a return to previous council practice for deliberating and voting on budget-related items, by which amendments with budget impacts can be voted on at full city council, rather than automatically sending those amendments to council's Budget and Finance Committee, which has become current practice. Stakeholders claim that sending items automatically to Budget and Finance Committee unduly elevates the power of the council president and the members of the Budget and Finance Committee by requiring other council members to rely on those colleagues to have their items heard and incorporated. Next slide. And then lastly, our other reforms for a budget process include increasing opportunities for in-person and remote public comment at budget meetings and incorporating a civic assembly into the budget process. One thing to note here is that Senate Bill 707, signed into law by Governor Newsom this year, requires legislative bodies to provide a teleconferencing option for public participation and comment in meetings beginning in July 26 until January 2030. Next reform is to increase the threshold for council to override a mayor's veto above the current 2/3 threshold established in the charter. And then lastly, as we kind of touched on before during our discussion of police reform, adopting a community-driven and city-supported participatory budget process. This reform would create a requirement in the charter for the city to have an independent budget commission fully funded and resourced, made up of members of the public to carry out a parallel participatory budgeting process. And the commission would have the power to take a vote of approval or no confidence in the city's budget.
All right, we're gonna kick off with some questions. I know, and I think just for kind of context for the public listening in, we're kind of taking, we went through the budget section of our staff report, and we're just gonna kind of group them together and give all of our questions and feedback in kind of chunks. But I think my initial comments for this section, and I shared with staff already, I think just kind of going back to some of the presentations we had, I believe it was our first one, so December 3rd, we heard from the New York Comptroller, and then also I think I'm gonna refer back to the CEO presentation we had, I think it was last week, in full commission. I think if we can just include some of the other pieces that they included in their presentation, that would be helpful. So for the New York presentation, they talked about them and how they've been operating on a 4-year strategic plan, but they also look at budget every single year. But they also had some pretty interesting insights around like how do you prevent like the city from going bankrupt. And I think those are some pretty interesting comments that they made around budget that I would like to see included in staff report. I know it's not necessarily recommendations, but I think they are insights that and models that provides context for us. And so that would be helpful. And I think for the CAO portion, and so I think that's the first item around the 2-year budget. I see that we included the CAO's approach in terms of the images that you attach to the staff report. But I remember they also included 2 other approaches, and I think one of them was Oakland, and so I think I just want to capture that as well as something they presented. Oakland?
Oakland, okay.
Yeah, and so I think referring back to that presentation, it was pretty straightforward, but I think just capturing that in this piece that they presented to us, different models, would be helpful for just catching all of the things that were kind of said to us. Those are my initial comments. Commissioner Thomas?
And I think this may be an opportunity for People's Budget LA. Participatory budgeting process. If that was in some way connected, then it may present a much fuller experience. I think if there are agencies, programs, and departments that you have to cut, I think the best folks to tell you that would be the people that are most impacted by those departments. And so I think that maybe one of the things that People's Budget LA brought out, the difference between when they did it the first time, was this time people highlighted the fact that fire needed more funding. Maybe that's a direct consequence, but I think they were doing this even prior to the fires. But I think the people have a good lens in terms of what needs to be and what needs to be prioritized as it relates to city services and programs. And I think that should be considered in this budgeting process. And if it is expanded to 2 years, it does give the opportunity for something like that to happen. So I do think that it would be important to find a way to not only get departments to propose what their budgets would potentially be, but also to double check that with community to find out if that's what they'd like to see, you know.
Yeah, I think for number 7 too, where it says adopt a community-driven and city-supported participatory budgeting process, I think it is helpful to know, because I think it was in our presentation that, you know, like the people budget, they are administering surveys and getting responses from the ground. And so I think that's worth mentioning here, that they are already doing it. I think on that piece, I'm curious because I know we're working with Rewrite LA to have their form of civic assemblies, and they've been collecting responses and
Rewrite.
Rewrite LA, yes.
Did you say unrig?
Rewrite.
Okay.
Rewrite LA.
Okay.
And I know City Fabrics also, they are, like, we have our own survey as well. I'm curious, like, what have we gathered so far in terms of budget responses? And I know we had the town hall in person and virtual. I think these are kind of examples of community-driven responses that I think if we could include it in here, I don't know if this is the place for it, but I think I'm just half-baked thoughts thinking it out because we are already doing the work and we are gathering it. I think those are 3 examples of kind of community-driven responses that can be included in budgeting process and getting feedback from community that we can kind of explore here.
Yeah. On the rewrite process, they will, of course, be coming to the commission with their recommendations and after their culmination of their process. So we're excited about having them back at a mini assembly over the weekend. That was, their first, and they'll have a broader, bigger assembly, I believe in early February. So we're looking forward to the process kind of playing out and then bringing back to the commission. On the outreach stuff that we're already doing, both with like the survey and just general outreach, City Fabric that helps augment that. We've definitely had some input on, we had our, the open house town hall event a couple weeks ago where we had people, putting on sticky notes their thoughts on budget processes. So I think we'll have that kind of read out here soon and post that, just kind of reflecting what people gave on comment at that event.
Yeah. Any other comments on this budget part? Okay, I think we're good to move forward with the next section.
So the next section is periodic charter review.
A little closer to me.
Sorry, I was talking loud. So the next section is periodic charter review. So periodic charter review is currently not discussed in the charter, though it is in statute in the Los Angeles Municipal Code. However, Fair Rep LA proposes that this be added to the charter alongside the addition of periodic charter review. They propose specifically including in the language to create enforceable deadlines for appointments of the commission members to avoid delays, allow the commission full scope of the charter review, give the commission power to place reforms directly on the ballot, provide commission authority over staff and budget to provide further independence, increase the number of commissioners chosen via an open application process, establish a permanent charter reform commission that focuses on charter review more consistently, add civic assemblies to the process to allow for greater diversity and representation and participation, and increase frequency of the charter review from 10 years in ordinance to 5 years.
I think just also noting, and I had shared this with staff already, but that CLA office also recommended 10 years, which they presented to us earlier when we first started this commission. I'm curious, I know in this one at the moment it says 10 years, but have we heard any other years be proposed to us or have heard anything other than 10?
So they're proposing 5. So far I've just been hearing like 5 or 10.
5.
But
I think the 10 is based also on the thought process that, every 10 years you also have census.
Mm-hmm.
There's some synergy there. For example, if, any commission wants to change a council composition, it wouldn't be enacted until after a census and redistricting is done. There we go.
I'm curious, I think just for purposes of more research, if we can do kind of a breakdown like 10 versus 5. I think also just gonna throw out this thought, because I know in terms of periodic charter review, like any adjustments to charter eventually is going to have approval and then go to the ballot for the voters. Like, is it worth considering election years as well? I think that's just something that I've been questioning, and so I think just taking note on those 3 things, so 5, 10, and maybe even mirroring election years. Or bigger election years. Any thoughts from you or any questions, Commissioner Thomas?
Yeah, I'm wondering what, in terms of what the difference. I like the 5 years if it means, because what it seems like happens is that when we do charter reform, it's starting over every time. And so if it's 5 years and it's starting over every time, I don't know how we get much done. But I think if, say for example, the charter reforms that did not make the cut roll over into the next, so these would be the ones that they would consider, they would have already been vetted, so to speak. The research would have already been done. I think it's important that that rolls over. And that would then cut probably the time in half. You know, we did have folks from the previous charter to come in and talk to us, but it was just a talk. It would have been good, and they talked about some things are not going to go, you know, and we've heard this whole conversation around, you know, most of what we may recommend may never actually be accepted and made it on the ballot. But I think it would be great if these things, as we have thoughtfully discussed, you know, many of these issues, even if they don't make it on the ballot or even if they're rejected by the people, they need to roll over into the next commission. And it'll be helpful from the standpoint of, it also gives somewhat of a blueprint in terms of what our job is. Because I think there's a lot of, there has been confusion about what our role is and what we're expected to do. And so I think it's one thing to be told, it's another thing to see it like in black and white. And so I think if the 5 years also means that we're rolling over issues from the previous commission, then I think that would be great. But if it just means starting from scratch, I don't see how that's going to be effective, you know.
I think I might just add to that too. I totally agree. I think in terms of the frequency in which reoccurring happens, I think also part of the conversation is how much time is the Charter Commission going to have. I think, you know, like the previous one had a little bit more time than we did for this round. And so I think depending on how long these commissions are going to have, might even change kind of like, do we want to do 5 year, 10 years, or, you know, X, Y, Z. So I think also just adding that as a question that we have that we want to dive into is also kind of length and duration of the commissions.
And that could be charter language, you know. A charter, you know, commission, it has to be appointed by, you know, X date with this kind of window to get their work done.
Because I definitely think that that there should have been that the language should be the Charter Commission should have a year to finish its work or something like that, as opposed to, you know, forcing a timeline because you have so little time. And I think that can determine whether or not it's 5 years or whatever.
Exactly, yeah.
Lacers.
So the next section is about the LA City Employees Retirement System. So the first one is to allow Lacers to set the frequency and timing of its board meetings. So Charter Section 503B regulates that boards must hold a regular meeting at least twice a month, which Lacers does on the second and fourth Tuesdays of the month. They refer to a 2019 survey that reported having meetings twice a month is unusually frequent and requires substantial amount of time and resources from the board and staff. So Lacers proposes amending the charter to allow the board to set its own meeting schedule, as it will allow increased flexibility to adopt modern governance practices, improve efficiency, and lessen administrative burdens while still maintaining the option for frequent meetings if necessary. So allowing them to say like one meeting a month at least, and then giving them the opportunity to add more meetings as they see fit. And then the next one is to require actuarial services to be reimbursed by the proponents for pension system ballot initiatives. So Charter Section 1168B requires the council to be advised in writing by an enrolled actuary to anticipate the cost of any benefit increases. However, this requirement, it doesn't apply for pension reform measures that are presented through the initiative process. So Lacers argues without actuarial input, the fiscal impacts of these proposals may not be fully understood before action is taken. In 2013, the City Council did adopt a motion to amend the charter to close this gap with the intention of promoting transparency and to uphold the financial integrity of the city and all of its retirement systems. Lacers argues adopting this reform now will strengthen the commitment and help build public trust. And then they also provided some proposed draft language regarding that one. The next one is to grant the Lacers Board independent authority to select its chief executive. So Section 1108B makes the appointment of Lacers General Manager subject to confirmation by both the mayor and city council, which they argue limits the board's ability to exercise full authority over executive leadership and requires participation in the process from parties who have no fiduciary duties to Lacers. They argue this authority would strengthen governance by ensuring that leadership appointments reflect qualifications and alignment with the city's mission. They also argue the independence enhances fiduciary oversight, operational stability, and the leadership framework necessary to safeguard member benefits and the trust fund financial integrity over time. And then lastly, grant Lacers the authority to retain its own legal counsel for all purposes. So Lacers, they do So Lacers is required to use a city attorney as its designated general counsel. There is also a city attorney's public pension general counsel division that provides legal services dedicated to the city's 3 retirement systems. But there are established policies and procedures for the Lacers Board to contract outside counsel for specialized advice and services, and to ensure that Lacers can retain independent counsel when the city attorney deems there's a conflict of interest that hinders them from representing them. However, they argue that this recommendation is different because Lacers having the authority to retain its own, them having their own legal counsel for all purposes, providing this authority to Lacers, they argue would expand the board's ability to exercise its fiduciary independence and reduce concerns over delays and challenges obtaining representation in the event of a conflict of interest. So due to this, they propose that they are granted the authority to retain their own legal counsel for all purposes.
I'll just note that last one we're getting from a lot of different departments.
And then for clarification, Lacers sent in a letter for this, right?
Yes, these are all from Lacers.
I feel like they gave a lot of context and also gave their proposed charter language, and I think we all kind of just need a little bit more time to look closer at it. Curious if they've reached out to present to the committee regarding these reforms?
I don't recall, they didn't ask present, they just wanted a letter here. And as I was showing Commissioner Thomas in the index, I think retirement takes up the largest section of the charter. It's definitely a complicated section for a lot of good reasons. But we can definitely reach out to them if you want us to. We've had some other groups that were like, oh, can we just send a letter? We've made it their choice, but if the committee or any commissioner said, like, we'd like a follow-up, we can reach out.
Yeah, I think that would be good because then we could ask questions.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes. Any additional comments or questions for this piece? I think, again, I also echo, it would be nice to have the opportunity to ask questions in person. So definitely reach out and let us know what they say.
Of course. And I think our last section.
So the last section is artificial intelligence procurement. So the Los Angeles Alliance for a New Economy recommends to have community-involved surveillance technology adoption. So they propose that residents and public sector workers should have a say in the introduction of new surveillance systems and technologies, and representatives of city services should also have a voice in the systems the government sets up for them. The next one they propose is to ensure job protections with artificial intelligence adoption. So the charter currently does not address artificial intelligence procurement. So in response to this, they discuss the need for requirements ensuring that using AI will not lead to job loss for public sector workers, but will augment their work and help them be more productive in their service to the public rather than replace them. And then the last one is, and then they also provided charter language specific to number 2. And then the last one is to introduce procurement standards to protect ownership of the city's data and protect the privacy of LA City residents. So they discuss without artificial intelligence procurement standards or standards in general addressed in the charter, residents of LA's privacy and ownership of the city's data is at risk. So in response to this, they propose to amend section 370 of the charter to include additional requirements within the contracting process. Requiring the city to answer a set of questions before signing a contract related to AI. And some of the questions they proposed were, why is this technology needed? Are there pre-existing protections against this type of artificial intelligence taking jobs from residents? Are there pre-existing systems in place for human oversight? Has this technology been evaluated? And what is the data that this technology will obtain during this contract?
I think again for this one, I know we were presented on this topic during our first committee meeting, and so I think it would be helpful to reach out to them again to see if they have any additional recommendations, or it's just these 3.
It's these 3, and they sent a letter afterwards.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Which we have. So, and they presented a little bit at Better Government Committee as well. Just about,
they also presented to
yeah,
them as well.
just about general ethics and stuff behind artificial intelligence and just an initial. But the bulk of what they wanted to come to the commission on was procurement, and that's why they came to this committee.
I see.
And I think it's, I think it becomes increasingly important when, as I wanted Stop LAPD Spying to be one of the organizations that spoke to us, and they didn't want to. Because they don't want to, they didn't want to go on record as seeming as if they support the outcomes of the commission without knowing what they would be. So basically not wanting us to be able to say, oh yeah, we had Stop LAPD spying, but you know, we're not going to deal with any of what they talked about. You know, and so they have been dealing with AI for a long time, and before it was even called artificial intelligence. What is it? Not metrics policing. What is it? It's I can't think of what it's called, but where these computers, predictive policing is what it's called. And you know, you don't have to have a computer to have in your mind that crime is probably occurring in the same grid that I talked about earlier, where poverty is. So you don't need a computer for that. You know, you don't need technology for that. We already know that, right? And so, in many ways, people are believing that technology, predictive policing, you know, at some point, and I think they were referring to that, at some point, these AI tools are going to be used to evaluate us. Because that's what predictive technology does. It's supposed to be able to, you feed it some scenarios and it predicts what's going to happen. And so they were really, really set against governments using this technology. Because governments already have a lot of bureaucratic red tape. It's hard for things to get moving. And maybe it should be that way because we're dealing with human beings as opposed to some predictive measure or some technology saying, lay off that entire department because they're not necessarily useful based upon our analysis. You know, without ever even talking to anybody, just assuming that whatever variables were fed into it is appropriate to make a particular prediction. And so I think we really, really do need to think about this. And I know that they're saying they don't want it replacing jobs, but who controls it and who says what they do with it? I mean, it is a way to surveil the thoughts of people. It collects the data. And, you know, I do think, oh, I'm sorry. So I think that we do need some language that that can be used to pump the brakes should this experiment go awry. And the other thing too is that I think we also have to consider what AI companies, and I think they mentioned that, is the city going to contract with? You know, are we going to make somebody rich? Are we going to make somebody a millionaire with these AI contracts? Justin Meta's not his favorite. So, you know, but imagine Meta. Imagine Elon Musk coming up with the perfect AI tool. Are we going to contract with Elon Musk? I mean, because I'm sure he's got an AI tool. If he had, well, Meta.
It's called Grok.
Yeah.
It's terrible. It's racist. Sorry.
So I think having some kind of framework or guardrails for not just the AI, but who gets the contract?
I think on that note, I was also just wondering if we can get a sense of how the city is using AI currently, because I realize I don't even know.
Sure.
That is
I
like,
mean, excuse me. We can definitely ask other city departments about this. Broadly speaking, like I think I've mentioned before, the city is a Gmail city. So, you know, all of our, you know, online services, we don't use Microsoft Word or Outlook. We use Google Mail, we use Google Docs. And all of that also comes with Google's Gemini, which is their AI platform.
mm-hmm.
So that is at least an example of how the city is implementing AI throughout the city.
No, that makes sense. And yeah, we're curious to see if there's other ways that departments are using it. But I think that's my question for this section.
Perfect. Well, that brings us to the conclusion, and I'll just want to, you know, at the top or at the end, kind of re-go through that the timeline for the commission is we are going to have subsequent meetings, likely a meeting on Thursday, and then many subsequent meetings, subsequent meetings of this committee and the commission on these topics. Moving forward, our calendar, and I'll be reporting out on Thursday at the full commission meeting. We've made some adjustments to our January calendar that I've informed the commissioners about, and we'll be talking a little bit about Thursday. I fully am, and I've said this to commissioners, there will be always additional meetings that will be added and shifted and moved and everything. We'll keep everyone as apprised as soon as possible. Further, there's the online survey, which I will update. We are going to extend past December. The online survey, please, you can find it linked to our charter reform website. Please engage that way. We have more town halls planned, including December. We had one in December 6th, and we have one on February 14th. Happy Valentine's Day, folks. You're going to be my Valentines. Deliberations and final recommendations. The process for getting everything to the council by the beginning of April is April 2nd, 2026, in order to have recommendations placed on the ballot by November 2026. And again, reminding everyone both here and listening at home to attend our meetings. Happy to host, if you're hosting conversations on this, please invite us, please invite commissioners, please invite staff. We're trying to make it to more events, and we'll continue to make it to more events. Like I said, there was the mini assembly that Rewrite LA hosted over the weekend. Please follow us on our social media, take our survey, and all those things. I think that about covers it. All I need from you all right now is a motion to receive and file, unless you have any more questions.
One quick question. Is
Sure.
the intention for us to talk about personnel is for the next staff meeting, or staff report?
Sorry, what? Oh.
In terms of attachment A.
Yeah, so we're still working on some of those details. As you're aware, the chicken or egg conversation here was, when does meet and confer happen? Does it happen after charter recommendations from our commission, or does it happen before? And we are now firmly in the place where meet and confer will have to happen before. So per state law, which I think is noticed somewhere in our full report. So we're still working on the timeline for when, for example, the personnel committee, the personnel team, the staff, the general manager, Malika, will be able to come back and give recommendations. So stay tuned on that.
Okay.
I don't have a firm answer for you right
And
now.
then similarly for, I think just Thursday, for the temperature check where we're with the rest of the full commission, are they allowed to touch on their current kind of like temperature check on personnel issues and things that we have heard, or should we just wait into that piece?
So I believe it's phrased as item number 1 today. Relative to potential personnel and budget related charter amendments, including but not limited to, and it goes through the list. Personnel is not, but again, limited to the report doesn't have much on personnel. So I believe we'll go through what we just went through today.
Okay, that's good. That's
what I've discussed with the chair as well.
Okay.
And so I have a question. So if we're talking about defunding the police, then could those savings be used to pursue affordable housing or permanent housing for the unhoused? And I say that because I find it incredible that that's not come up when the mayor ran on that platform. What's the name of the organization? LASA, what's it called? What's the right
agency, yes.
Yeah, the agency.
Yeah.
It's been disbanded, correct? Or something. Something has happened to it. It imploded, let's just say that. It's lost all credibility. It's been that way with community, which is why it's important to invite community. So within the context of budget, can we pull that in? Like if we're talking about cutting the police budget, can we make the argument that we're not just taking the budget, we're reinvesting it? Is that
so?
And do that via the charter.
There are definitely sections in the charter that talk about formulas, percentages of the budget that go to different places. Some committees are talking about that. Some are others. Some commissioners definitely have feelings about what's called ballot budgeting, ballot box budgeting, to be exact. So there are feelings on both sides. It is something that is definitely not off the table. I think what we framed it as so far in our staff reports is just changing the process of the budget and changing how it's done, be it through better outreach, community outreach, 2-year processes, etc. Capital Improvement Program, which is a different committee, definitely has a lot of budget implications as well. So we framed it that way. We haven't gotten specific recommendations yet that said take that defund money and programming it directly into be it X, Y, or Z. So since we haven't gotten those recommendations that I'm aware of, again, if I'm correct, lots of people have our email. Please use it. Let us know. But until that's why we haven't framed it that way.
Okay, because I just think that I think those are the two biggest issues.
I hear you. Housing is more under infrastructure and planning.
Right.
So far, they've taken some measures on on approaches on housing. They've gotten recommendations from folks, including Abundant Housing. For now, they aren't moving forward with those recommendations, but they weren't necessarily, I can't remember if they were necessarily budget recommendations. They were more about, oh, thank you. You are more than welcome to.
Well, they voted
for those listening at home, this is Kate.
They voted to table it for the infrastructure discussion. So the Planning and Infrastructure Committee has only gone through all of the planning reforms. In January, they're going to go through the infrastructure reforms. One of the proposals was setting a dedicated amount of the city budget for affordable housing. So that's a conversation they'll have in January.
And so they should know that we'd like to see the savings from LAPD go to that budget.
I think there are conversations that overlap, and so again.
Are you on the planning?
Oh no. But I think we had earlier conversations with some of the items that once we get further with this process, a lot of our committees and the things we're looking at are going to start to overlap, and so I think that's when, you know, the full commission's gonna come together and deliberate on those.
Yeah. There'll be, at some point, there'll be a lot less, quite frankly, because of the time constraints, there'll be, you know, committee work will end because we won't be able to bounce back and forth between committee and commission. It will just be bouncing between commission meeting and commission meeting and commission meeting, so it doesn't, you know, to be efficient. Again, all I need is a receive and file.
All right, on that, I'm gonna entertain a motion to receive and file the presentation and staff report for today, and then also adjourn. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, any objections? Seeing none, this meeting is adjourned at 8:07 p.m. Thank you everyone for making it out, and we'll see you at the next meeting.
Thank you.